While venture capital investments in startups propel innovation, business growth, and sustainable development in economies and societies worldwide, AI also lays a foundation for VCs-informed investment choices for a maximum impact. A warm welcome to all of the experts, leaders, AI enthusiasts, and curious minds out there joining us from around the globe. Please let us know in the chat where you're dialing in from. I'm thrilled to welcome and introduce you to this pivotal conference where venture capital meets generative AI, a new frontier filled with extensive possibilities and limitless potential. Today, we stand on the cusp of a revolutionary transformation. Generative AI is rapidly gaining traction amongst investors, promising a tectonic shift across industries worldwide. To navigate this promising landscape, we have gathered 20 renowned experts from the investment and startup ecosystem from 5 continents. Today's agenda is filled with thought-provoking panel discussion, illuminating keynotes, real-world use cases, and transparent interviews. In a few minutes, we commence with Investing in AI Characteristics of Tomorrow's Leaders to gain insights into the defining traits of the future forerunners in AI investments. Then we shift our attention to thinking beyond the atypical. As we all know, old habits will not result in new outcomes. Then we will ask the expert how to invest like a pro and what the top secret evaluation criteria are when it comes to VC investments. We will also dive into the topic of child-centered AI for more equitable future returns and explore why AI needs VCs and VCs needs AI. We have only 3 hours to cover an extensive agenda, and that is, dear audience, very much on purpose. With my co-founder, Andy, and with our team, we organize these conferences not only to inform you from credible sources about the latest development in the AI arena, but also to connect you with the experts and the leaders from various industries on global level. There is only so much that we can share in 3 hours, so feel free to connect with us and the speakers on social media to brainstorm and exchange after this conference. We would love to hear your views, and next time, maybe even on stage. To not longer lose time, let me set things in motion and ensure that we have the maximum amount of time available for our speakers today. Thank you for you joining us today and enlightening this journey, explore such promising horizons together. Let us shape the future filled with innovation, growth, and mutual prosperity. And now, dear audience, let's welcome Caroline on our virtual stage that is bridging distance and time zones around the world. Caroline, let me extend a warm welcome to you also from our team in the backstage as well as from the audience. Caroline, you are joining us from London today. You are an early stage investor with J12 Ventures. You focus on pre-seed and seed investments in companies building the next generation of data and AI companies, investing in both AI enablers and developer tools, like your investments in IV and applications like Dima.ai. Alongside your day job as an investor, you're also the co-founder of GAIN, Girls Are Investors. Actually, Europe's largest charity aimed to educate and inspire more young women to pursue a career in investing. Thank you for doing that. And now, investing in the data and AI era, how we filter through the noise and where in the AI stack we find most business defensibility. Caroline, the virtual stage is yours.
Thank you very much for that kind intro, and thanks a lot for having me. It's a real pleasure. Well, I have a lot to cover in this kind of initial session, so I think let's get straight into the presentation. I think for the next few hours, you've organized for a very large set of diverse perspectives on the current state of building and investing in AI and the opportunities and risks that lie ahead of us to be discussed. So I thought I would kind of set this in for the day by first discussing, first of all, why now is such an interesting time to be building and investing in AI. And secondly, kind of tearing apart what amidst all the hype that we're currently seeing truly characterizes the AI leaders of tomorrow. And then more specifically, as you mentioned, where I, as an early stage investor in data and AI, think the most interesting and durable businesses are being built across the AI stack today. So why now? Well, it is the most important question that we VCs always ask ourselves. And I'm guessing many of you might have heard about or used AI for the first time only in the last few years. But it's really a multi-decade long journey of technological advancements, right? That started already back in the 1950s. So why is 2023 such a pivotal point and particularly interesting time to be building and investing in AI? Well, I would boil it down to three key things. So, first of all, advancements in data availability. Secondly, AI research. And third, investment into the space. So, to kind of put some numbers around all this, compared to just 5 years ago, there's a staggering amount of 30 times more data being created daily. And the number of parameters of GPT's models, so if you want to compare GPT-4 versus GPT-1, have gone up by 8,500 times, all at the same time, while cost of training these large models have decreased by around 10 times annually. And all of this has, of course, resulted in the industry attracting a lot more investment and interest, about 5 times over the last 5 years. And I think what is worth noting is that there's really no sign that any of this exponential rate of development is slowing anytime soon. So if you think that AI is pretty impressive today, well, it's going to be absolutely mind-blowing in just a year or two. So what has been the impact of all of this on the startup ecosystem? Well, it's gotten a lot more accessible and significantly cheaper to build AI companies. So I think if you look back and reflect just a year or two, I think the ecosystem in all felt a lot more inaccessible, and it really felt like centralized big tech had an unfair access to both compute and to data, and would either capture most of that value themselves or extract it from its customers. More recently, though, partially due to the open source community and also to a flourishing generation of new AI enablers on the infrastructure side, the technology is becoming both more accessible and cheaper, which is great to see. So where does that take us? Well, we're looking at a global AI market that's likely to surpass traditional SaaS in revenue generated already in 2024 at 300 billion in revenue. But what is maybe even more staggering than that statistic is the fact that the market is expected to continue to grow 40% annually, or 13 times until 2030. So I think it's fair to sum it up and say that the scale and growth of AI's impacts is truly unprecedented. And in just a few years, we're likely to be looking out at a whole new reality where pretty much no traditional or tech businesses will be able to come out on the other side undisrupted. But as with any kind of new wave of technological hype, you obviously also have kind of massive talent, company, and investor rush into the space. And that's creating a lot of noise, making it quite difficult for us investors to kind of differentiate the exceptional founders that we want to back versus the average founders and ideas. And I think it's easier said than done to kind of stay principle oriented and focus on characteristics that drive real long-term defensibility. But it is the most important question that both builders and investors should be asking themselves in times like this. So what do I think characterize the true AI leaders of tomorrow? Well, in short, I would sum it up as the companies that are best at gathering, structuring, and using data. But there's obviously a lot of nuance that we can dig into below that statement. So let's do that. I thought to kind of unpack this that I would spend just a few minutes drawing out the current AI stack the way we see it. And then bear in mind, the industry is obviously very early in its development still. So both kind of the stack itself and the areas that I find most interesting and durable from an investment perspective can really change in a heartbeat. So if we look at the stack as we currently see it today, at this colorful and quite complex visual courtesy of our friends at A16Z, I thought I would just take them in turn. So if you start at the very bottom, you have the hardware layer, and that's really hardware that enhances computational processes in the forms of GPUs and TPUs. And I think the best way to sum up this part of the stack is that the R&D cycle is really, really long, almost a decade in most cases. So companies like NVIDIA that already have such a dominant market position and unfair advantage, they're making it very difficult for new companies to enter this space. So as a result, we as early stage investors tend to kind of stay away from the hardware side. Not that we tend to see a lot of deal flow in that space regardless, but still. Moving one layer up, you have the cloud providers. I think most of you listening in will probably be familiar with those companies like AWS and Azure. Obviously, once again, a part of the stack that is dominated by the large incumbents and giants. We are actually seeing quite a lot of interesting companies being built adjacent to the cloud platforms at the moment, trying to grapple with one of the major issues we're seeing, which is the high cost of cloud. But we're not necessarily backing cloud companies in and of themselves. And then moving one layer further, you have displayed there in yellow the software infrastructure layer. I would bucket this in three main groups of opportunities. So data infrastructure, DevOps, and MLOps. And it's a part of the stack that's a lot more nascent in its development. It's more fragmented. It's less dominated by large incumbents. And as a result of that, it's really flourishing. And we see a lot of interesting startups in this space. So I'll come kind of back to that in a second. If we move just one layer above that, in blue, we have the model layer. And here, once again, you have brilliant large tech players like Google and Meta, as well as, of course, very well-funded, newer, yet incredibly well-known companies like OpenAI or Cohere. And I think what these models have really done, either delivered by APIs or via the growth of the open source community, is to democratize that model intelligence, making the technology increasingly accessible and affordable, like we spoke about earlier. Having said that, despite it being such an important part of the stack, we don't really see a lot of merit investing in it. And I think even a leaked internal memo from Google stated that even them don't really think that they have a long-term moat when it comes to AI models specifically. So instead, we see greater opportunity to kind of invest in where and how all of that intelligence is being applied, rather than purely in the model layer itself. And then moving over to the final part of the stack up in red, applications. I think this part of the stack is pretty self-explanatory. It's where most of you guys will have interacted with AI, of course, and it's also where most companies are being built. You could maybe call it the last mile delivery of artificial intelligence, if you will. It's a part of the stack that we find very interesting, so I'll kind of dig into that in a second. Just to recap, because that prior slide was quite complex, there's two key parts of the stack that we focus on. It's vertical applications and then software infrastructure. So I thought I would just take you through what we see in each. Sorry, I missed one slide. I'll go straight to this one. So on the applications side of things, we're looking predominantly at vertical rather than horizontal applications. And the reason being that we think vertical applications often have better data flywheels, and they're also better at serving their end customers due to the level of specialization. Importantly, we're looking at AI native companies only, so not kind of AI futured companies. And we're looking at companies that predominantly have some kind of proprietary model built. We're looking at companies that are utilizing and building upon both data and predictive analytics, natural language processing, generative AI, and computer vision. And we're looking at companies that are addressing the needs of a wide range of customers, everything from kind of individual end customers to large enterprises. And then what do we assess with these vertical applications? Well, obviously in the middle of this graph, you have team, which is the most important part, at least in the early stages of VC investing. But kind of around that, we have four main buckets. So firstly, data capture. Here we're looking at things like volume and quality of data, but also data structure. Then we have model quality. So that's things like level of proprietary development, level of specialization, fine-tuning and model alignment. And then, of course, we have design. Here we're looking at how well companies are understanding the enterprise or consumer processes that they cater to, and of course, how well the UI and UX of the product is positioned in that regard. And then finally, in green, you have distribution, which is the more classic kind of business characteristics like business model, go-to-market strategy, and positioning. Moving over to the enabling or infrastructure part of the stack, there's a lot to cover here, and there's many nuances to infrastructure companies, but if I were to categorize them in three main buckets briefly, we have data infrastructure. That's really companies that are providing the underlying infrastructure and tools for collecting, managing, and working with data at scale. Then we have DevOps, which is companies that are providing tools that help software developers automate and streamline the process of building, testing, and deploying applications. And then we have MLOps, which is companies that are providing tools that help data scientists and machine learning engineers manage the entire machine learning lifecycle. And because it's such a complex space, I could spend a lot of time digging into what we look for here, but I thought I'd keep it simple to just the number one criteria that we look for in companies in the infrastructure or enabling layer. And that is really thought leadership and ability to build strong communities. Super essential in this part of the stack. So I thought I would just wrap this all up by quickly discussing two examples of recent investments that I've done that kind of exemplify these different archetypes of opportunities that we look for. One investment I recently did was in a company called Ivy in the enabling part of the stack, a London-based company, and they're on a mission to unify all machine learning frameworks. Very exciting company, predominantly open source. So if you are a builder in the ML space, definitely do check them out. And then secondly, Dema.ai in the vertical applications part of the stack. Dema is an AI decision platform for e-commerce companies. So if you are an e-com struggling with how to utilize data across divisions, well, Dema is here to give you access to tools that were previously only available to large e-coms with large internal engineering teams. That was quite a lot of ground to cover in not a lot of time. I'm very happy to continue the conversation with anyone afterwards. You have my handles here. In the meantime, I know that SwissCognitive has a brilliant agenda of conversations that will take place over the next few hours that will hopefully shed some more light of some of these very interesting yet complex dynamics.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you very much for this inspiring and very important information and sharing what you're doing. Before we going further, I would actually like to ask you a question. At the beginning, we said that you're also the co-founder of GAIN, Girls Are Investors. And I would really love to hear a little bit more about GAIN and what made you actually establish GAIN and where are you here now, and actually how SwissCognitive and the global community can support you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for mentioning that. It's a huge passion project of mine that's obviously now growing to be quite large, as you alluded to in the beginning. Well, I think the best way to kind of sum it up is investors have a huge responsibility when it comes to shaping the world of tomorrow, because we get to decide which companies get funded, and all biases that investors have, they're reflected in the companies that get funded too. And we all know, the studies show it, that diverse teams make better decisions, yet only 10% of investors across Europe today are women. So I observe this kind of issue firsthand, having spent almost a decade in the industry. And I spent a lot of time recruiting from my prior firm, doing talks at schools in the UK in particular. And the girls were just not showing up. So we thought we had to do something to tackle really the root cause of the problem with diversity in the industry, which is to really bring up and nurture like a young pipeline of opportunities of women that can then go into the industry. So that is really what GAIN is focused on. So we have an incredible team of 8 full-time employees today, but we also have an amazing 1,300 strong investor volunteering community that represent more than 500 funds in the UK. And together, all of us, we come together, we go out and do talks at schools and universities. We've done more than 100 events. We also offer internship and insight positions at these firms. So it's really about kind of leveraging the entire community of investors to try to tackle the root cause of the gender diversity issue in investment.
Brilliant, love it. So I'm actually wondering how many young women and also how many fathers and mothers out there, reach out to your kids, to your young kids, older kids, and bridge with Caroline. I think it's a great possibility. And yes, we need diversity. And it's something that it's up to the role models like you to enable and empower them. We have one other question coming from the chat. Let me read it to you, please. Do you think AI regulation will stifle innovation and make it harder to startups to break into the market unless the one OpenAI level investments, to have OpenAI level investments?
Right. The topic of regulation is an interesting and complex one. I do think some level of regulation, or even the better word to kind of describe it, is community alignment on a common set of frameworks for how to manage AI is incredibly crucial, because even though I'm a huge supporter of AI, it obviously comes with massive risks, both in the short term, things like ethical concerns, copyright, et cetera, but also more existential questions further down the line. So I think a healthy level of regulation, or just alignment on frameworks and incentives, is incredibly important. I don't think necessarily that will prohibit innovation. I think AI is too powerful at this stage to kind of bring back to a level where the kind of level of impact that I spoke about wouldn't be happening. So a healthy mix of both, I think, is the best way forward.
Okay, great. Thanks again for sharing, Caroline, and hope to see you very soon. Dear audience, feel free to connect with Caroline on social media and address your other questions directly to her. And I hope to see you soon on stage, or actually in person. Let us know when you're in Switzerland. Okay. See you and have a great summer. Bye.
Great. Thank you so much. Brilliant to be on. Thank you so much.
And now, dear audience, let me turn your attention towards our first expert panel discussion for the day, the investment revolution, thinking beyond the atypical. A dynamic panel discussion that will explore the risk and opportunities and enterprise application of generative AI, not only in the Western world, but also on the global South. Dear panelists, it's a pleasure to extend a warm welcome to all of you on our virtual stage. We greatly appreciate your presence and are excited to delve into your profound insights on today's transformative topic. Before I hand it over to you, Thomas, for moderation, let me introduce you and your panelists to our global audience. Dear Thomas and dear friend, you are the president of SwissCognitive, the largest and most active angel investors club in Switzerland. You hold a PhD in computer science from the ETH Zurich and have worked in Silicon Valley and at Google. As an angel investor, co-founder and board member, you support startups from idea to exit. You are the main author of the free Swiss Angel Investors Handbook for inspiring startup investors. As a member of the top 100 digital shapers of Switzerland, you enjoy shaping the future with your portfolio startups. Thank you for being here with us and leading the panel. And now to your panelists. Lisa, קודם כל shalom. You are a venture capitalist, recently launched a pre-seed fund focused on deep tech, specifically targeting talent individuals from the elite tech units of the Israeli intelligence. Previously, you served as an investment director at JVP, one of Israel's largest venture capital firms with 1.6 billion under management. Before your time at JVP, you led the Israeli investment for Energy VC. Actually, I still don't know how to spell that. Perhaps you can tell me. Energy VC fund, which was later acquired by E.ON, originally from France. Yeah. Energy, okay. Originally from France, Lisa Cohen is a proud mother to Noam and Arbel. You hold a bachelor degree in a specialization of finance from Reichman University, Israel, as well as a master in science in strategic marketing from London School of Business and Finance in the UK, where you actually finished with a summa cum laude. Lisa, a warm welcome on our virtual stage. With you, we have Stéphane Héloise. As the CEO of Digital Africa, you have spearheaded a 130 million initiative launched by President Macron to booster African digital entrepreneurship. You have also led open classroom growth in Africa, co-founded Africa for Tech, and established O'Reilly Consulting. Holding a PhD in communication science and philosophy, you are a researcher at the New York University for Media, Culture, and Communication, and a lecturer at the Sorbonne and Sciences Po in Paris, specializing in digital ethics and African education. Currently, you are authoring a book on AI in music, recommendation engine, and we are very much looking to see that and read it. Welcome, Stéphane Héloise. With you, we have Cédric. Great to have also you with us on stage. Cédric, you are an enthusiast and an innovative tech entrepreneur and investor. You spend your time with startups in the Web 2 and Web 3 space and help them succeed in their early stage. Your commitment to turning ideas into successful businesses has made a significant impact in Europe and in the US. As the head of Tomahawk VC and the CEO of Code and State, a Web3 venture studio, you empower and support the next generation of entrepreneurs. You fully embrace the revolutionary potential of blockchain technology, and you believe in the transformative power of Web3 inspires you to create innovative business models and industries. Cédric, a warm welcome to you too. Last, but most certainly not least, Alexander. Welcome. Alexander, you are a seasoned venture capital leader with an MBA from Oxford. You kickstarted your career in fund management, transitioned to a role as personal assistant to the global managing partner for tax at KPMG, and later ascended the ranks at Swiss venture capital firm Brains2 Ventures. Your journey led you to your current role as the head of equity partner, the corporate venture capital unit of Philip Morris International. Thomas, Lisa, Stéphane Héloise, Cédric, and Alexander, welcome. And let me hand over to you, Thomas. See you again in 30 minutes.
Thanks, Dalit, for the nice opening words. We have a fantastic panel here with venture capitalists, and I have the honor to ask them all the questions. The title of this panel is The Investment Revolution, Thinking Beyond the Atypical. So the question is, in general, AI, is it really changing the game? And if so, in which way? I suggest we start with something very concrete. So we've heard a lot about the concepts behind generative AI, but let's make it really concrete with an example. Maybe Lisa, can you give us an example of generative AI, how it's used in the enterprise nowadays, and what is it really changing? Like, what is the revolution behind it? Can you exemplify that?
Yeah, I'd say that I'm particularly excited about the intersection between generative AI and vertical software. I believe it will produce some of the biggest companies the world has ever seen. So, for example, vertical use cases for generative AI that is embedded in the team's normal workflow, such as Jasper AI for marketers. Developer tools and enterprise tools to safely and creatively incorporate Gen AI in organization. Consumer applications, consumers will be the big gainers of this new technology that will offer reliable automation and increase productivity. The number of use cases are huge. The market is very big, and I expect this trend to offer non-technical founding teams to succeed in vertical markets. The deep knowledge of the pain and the robustness of the product will make market leaders in this field.
Maybe Cédric can give another example of generative AI in enterprises.
Revolutionizing the process of customer support, especially in the hospitality sector. So they run hotels that don't have a front desk anymore, but they offer 24/7 live chat and phone calls. And if you go on the chat, what they found is that they've now fully replaced a team of 10 to 20 people that they had daily sitting there on the virtual customer support desk for their hotels with their own interpretation of OpenAI's ChatGPT. So they've trained a model based on OpenAI, and they're able to answer all those 20 to 30 different requests that typically come in from hotels. So that's one. And then another one that I just recently realized, I was on the receiving end. So this has nothing to do with an investment of mine, but I was chatting with this chatbot online about some customer support request. And it took like 4 or 5 messages until I realized that I was not talking to a human being. So I was pretty positively surprised how good this has become and how often AIs are integrated and making a difference.
So there's lots of applications, as I hear. Now, with each of these applications, there's great opportunities. Let's first talk about them. So what is really like the new thing that now is possible, which wasn't possible before? Can you give specific opportunities, also specifically from a viewpoint of a VC, where you feel that AI has really changed the game? Maybe Lisa, you have something you want to share about where AI became the game changer and where it really changes how you look at investments in that space.
I'll start with software engineering. Generative AI is changing the way companies are developing software, from code generation, from bug analysis, documentation of code. Definitely, these companies won't most probably get through. They'll have to pivot because today models are doing that for them. Large language models are doing that for them. So this will be a topic where definitely there will be a lot of changes and a lot of opportunities for companies that are, natively embracing generative AI. Same for HR, sales, marketing.
Just saying on the developer thing that you mentioned. So you basically say you can replace many of the software developers going forward.
Definitely.
For you as an investor, that means that your companies need to hire less people to be successful and be market leaders. Is this right? This is what you want to say?
I think that in the near future, almost everyone speaking English and will be able to write a right prompt will be able to generate code. So I believe that
anybody becomes a programmer, even those which never learned it, you say.
In the near future, we'll need much less programmers, code developers, to develop some, very deep code and deep code. This won't happen anymore. We will see fewer teams of people that will know how to prompt well in the very near future.
So, Stefan, do you share that view that we don't need programmers anymore? We just need a little more AI, and then the company just works?
Can you hear me? I'm not sure I can unmute myself.
I can hear you very well.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I totally, I agree with what Lisa just said, in the sense that it will be possible. It is now possible, actually, to generate code from natural language processing. So definitely a change in the way we train and educate software engineer. I think it will still be very much required to have high quality software engineers, though. And we will use generative, and we are using generative AI as assistant and tools assisting. So capacities and abilities to generate good prompt, but also for data scientists, not only software engineer, but for data scientists, to generate reports and analysis. I think generative AI will be a major change. And the continent that I'm currently working on, or have been working on for the last decade, will be very strongly impacted by that, because today, like the majority of the youth in the world, by 2030, over half the population, the working force population, will be in Africa, and this is tomorrow. So these young people will need to work in the digital economy, and they are already working in the digital economy. For example, in Tunisia, over 40% of the students are Python developer. So this is, like a major opportunity for African markets, and therefore for investing in African markets.
So just to rephrase that, so you say very soon, by 2030, half of the world's under 25 population will live in Africa. But at the same time, you say they're all going to be programmers. But I just heard before, we don't need programmers because AI is doing the job, right?
I didn't say we don't.
What does it really mean? I just don't think it's true. Do we need more programmers or less programmers?
No, I didn't say we will need. I said we will need different programmers with different skill set. So I think we will need like high quality programmers, good engineers. So with the capacity to actually generate good use cases and understand, and then prompt them to a generative AI. And last but not least, we will need a data set to be actually clean and available for these generative AI services. And this also will require a lot of working population. And this working population is in Africa and will be in Africa.
So you mentioned a very interesting part of creating a product, which is having the right data. AI works best if you have the right data and if you have enough of it, right? So the question is then the data part more important going forward than the source code part? Is this a hypothesis that you look for as a VC? Maybe Cedric has a view on that. Is it the code in the future, the algorithm, or is it more the data that we're going to fight for?
I think my view is, just from personal experience, we'll still need computer scientists. The way I use ChatGPT to write code is it's definitely sped up my workflow when I write scripts. So I have lots of like automation that run on my laptop, and writing those scripts would previously, let's say, to like if I plug in a certain device, copy over certain files automatically, doing that manually before would have taken me a day, and now it takes me maybe 5 minutes to have a first version of the script that's working, and then it takes me another half an hour to really polish it. But I think we still need computer scientists, because the code that comes out of ChatGPT, A, it has lots of bugs at the beginning, and B, it's far from optimized for like any target infrastructure or use case. So I think the way I look at it is, we need better trained software developers. We need computer scientists. We need people that understand how ChatGPT works. Because I think that's also one of the biggest risks. There's lots of upside, and generally I'm very optimistic about AI. But one of the challenges that I also see with this new technology is that it's very hard to fact check or double check what it's actually doing, right? Because these models get trained, and there's a very large model. No human being has the capacity to manually go through all the notes or calculations to say, yes, this is the right input, or this output exists because of all these different inputs. And I think that is one challenge that we haven't really faced yet, or at least I don't know of any good solution yet, like how we're going to deal with that. It's hard to deterministically say why a certain output is given on any given input.
And I believe the regulation will go there. But the regulation will be forcing big LLM models, large language models, to be able to have some kind of data lineage. What kind of input was done in order to have this kind of output? I think it's going there, but I agree with you. This is one of the main risks: garbage in or garbage out. And there will be, at some point, in the shorter term, there will be quite a lot of people that will need to check the results of those engines, because it won't be accurate enough. But I believe that with time, it will become more and more accurate.
Okay, so talking about risks here, basically, Alexander definitely has a view on that. He mentioned before the chat, he looks at regulations very carefully. Maybe you can give your view. What are the risks if we go down that path that basically AI generates the codes, everybody's fighting for data, who validates actually everything that we generate? How do you see that, Alexander?
Yeah, look, maybe a couple of thoughts. I think on the one hand, many of us are concerned about the impact that AI will have eventually on our society, because it might, in fact, as you suggested before, make certain jobs redundant, which may lead to sort of mass unemployment in certain areas, at least, and could potentially lead to political disruption if sort of certain people come to the stage and provide sort of simple answers to respond to sort of some rather complex questions, right? So maybe that's a sociological thing. The other thing is, how can you keep the lid of the Pandora's box closed, at least to a certain extent? So currently we're discussing on the European level legislation that is basically saying, hey, we'll look at different industries, and within each industry we'll basically say AI can be used relatively safely here and needs to be regulated as much as possible here. So that tends to sort of educate a little bit what we can see in the future, even though I think it might be a little bit challenging to sort of always control that, because as we all know, startups tend to pivot and sort of change their approaches from time to time.
So, talking about regulation, who should write the regulation such that it will be a good one?
So that's interesting, because if you listen to sort of experts in panels such as ours, I think what I hear very often is, also let's look at what the politicians have to offer, and then we'll look, right, and we'll criticize and we change. So maybe this is a good opportunity to learn a bit from the past and involve ourselves a little bit, like the experts, but also the sort of indirect stakeholders, if you will, like the VCs, for example, and have a word in the sort of making of these laws, because it's better and faster than sort of later on coming in. And it might actually be important in terms of global competition, because don't forget, sort of Europe is competing a little bit with other regions of the world, and AI is actually an area where we're not too bad at this point in time, at least. So maybe that's something that we want to hold on to.
So do VCs actually have a say in the political process here when it's about regulating AI? Or is it really like more, especially in Europe, is it more the politicians driving it, or is it more the industry driving it?
If I may offer my view, I think VCs, at least if I was a private VC today and not a corporate VC, I would probably educate myself a lot on regulation, because regulation will basically determine to a certain level, at least, the success, potential success of a startup that I invest in, right? And so the more and more you familiarize yourself with sort of legislation around AI, the more you develop an educated opinion. I think we've seen similar things with investors working on cannabis-related topics, for example, suggesting certain sort of legislation around the legalization of cannabis use. And so maybe that's, again, coming back to that point, a good opportunity for us, even though we're usually not involved in legislation, to at least offer an opinion and give some advice if we're asked.
So is legislation, regulation more a threat to the VC investments, or is it more an opportunity? Who has an opinion here? Anyone?
I want to say something. I don't think, like VC and regulation should be completely tied. However, I think the VC must develop some sort of like business ethics and ethical due diligence's capacity, because we all agree on the risk around generative AI. So misinformation harms when the model hallucinates, and discrimination, which is something that is already happening today in AI, when large language models reinforce biases that are present in the data they are trained on. And these are things that we don't know yet. We don't have a simple solution to mitigate those risks. And I don't think regulation itself will solve this problem. But we should be, at the very minimum, fully transparent about how models are built and validated. And this is where VC can play a role, I think, because in our due diligences, we must be able to ask, how transparent is the model? Is it a black box? How peer-reviewed is the technology? And especially in application and markets such as health or education. I also want to add something about, some kind of like accountability from the VC perspective, and also tied to the risk of generative AI, because we know that because of the memory capacity, the incredible amount of data sets and the diversity of the data set that requires generative AI application, there's a risk to see huge monopoles and not having an open market. This is why also we must invest in strategic areas of generative AI, such as verticals, so health, education, agriculture, but also different geographies, such as Africa again, but I'm advocating for where I'm working.
Now, regulation has two sides, right? If it's too tight, might be tricky. If there's no regulation, it's also a little bit arbitrary, right? And maybe it's not even the same regulation which will apply to all geographies, right? Maybe some of the countries are slightly more strict than others, which will also change the game a lot, especially if you invest in the wrong geography. Now, as a VC, using generative AI for your daily job, would that be an option? Did you really look into it? And if so, in which way actually are you using it? Who can give an example of how you use it already today? Cedric, maybe first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I use it pretty much across all my tools and across all my work streams. And a couple use cases are summaries, but also pre-writing emails, and then a lot of research, just to get not like the deep research, but just to get an idea of a landscape, potential competitors, business models that existed before in slightly similar or adjacent fields. Yeah, the one thing that I probably use most often is let it pre-write my emails. So I've even I use an email client where I've created like shortcuts for prompts that are then sent to OpenAI. And so if I want to give a negative, so in the VC game, right, we say no a lot more often than we say yes. And so in a way, you almost have to be better at saying no than you have to be at saying yes. But at the same time, that's also a lot of emails to write. So I've trained it to like write rejection emails in my tone. I click the button, it's pre-filled, and then I just go through it and adapt it slightly. But that's probably 10x my efficiency in that part of my job.
So it's primarily a productivity tool in communication, you say. And Lisa, how do you use AI as a VC?
Quite a lot for research. So not only OpenAI, because you know that it was trained only up to 2021, September 2021. So I'm using other tools as well, such as Bard, that are a bit more trained on current data. A lot of market research. So market research, competition landscape, understanding a bit more the market. So it is a tool that I'm using very, very often. Even though
Anybody
I'm
else
aware
has examples of...
so I'm aware of the hallucination, and I'm aware on what kind of data the market is trained. But I think to give like good understanding or good directions to research, it's a very, very, very efficient tool.
Any more examples in VC land how to use AI? Stefan, anything?
Yeah, I think adding on what had been just said very quickly, for my part, so very early stage, we use AI for screening because like it's really when you have to treat such a big and a massive amount of data. So at Digital Africa, we put together a data infrastructure to better screen actually some of the candidates who apply to our Safe Note very early stage investment or even pre-seed investment. Yes.
And Alexander, are you using it also, or not yet, or
not using it at the moment? No, I think we're still sort of using our established processes so far, but I think in the future it will definitely be a helpful tool in terms of sort of pre-selection and pre-screening a little bit. And as Cedric mentioned, for example, communication purposes. I think the other thing that we shouldn't forget is that if you invest in a startup, it's usually a 3 to 5 to 8 year sort of story, right? So yes, maybe you can facilitate a little bit research and selection of startup and then maybe even the investment process, but then at some point the startup will face market and will run into certain problems that may not be immediately solvable with what happens if your CTO leaves the company. Is that something that AI can sort of immediately fix, or do you have to sort of find that CTO somewhere else? So I think there will still be enough work for, let's call it, startup investor community to be active and sort of building on AI, but also complementing AI where it has sort of shortfalls.
If I may add on the
Yes.
risk of technology, because we didn't talk a lot. We talked about, of course, the problem of bias and the problem of accuracy, but the problem for startups, a huge topic to be very aware of is the commoditization from the giants. What else will they do? In which segment will they enter? The issue of privacy, confidentiality. How much of your data you want to put inside OpenAI, how much do you want to train OpenAI models on your data. Of course, you have some open source today models that are not bad at all, less accurate but not bad at all, where you can store wherever you want. But still, this is a main issue for startups. And that'll add the cost issue, of course. That for each for the context that you need to provide such models, you'll have to pay to upload some context. So the cost issue is a main issue for a startup. So these three risks are major ones that need to be well understood, and for VCs, of course, we need to take them into account.
Now, right now, there's a big hype about AI in Europe and in US. How is it in Africa? Is there also a hype, or is it more a fear, or is it still very early? You don't see it yet. Like, can you give us some insights, Stefan?
Sure. Well, I wouldn't say it's a hype because, like Africa, there's a reality, even though it can be completely, let's say, nuanced, but there's a reality of the leapfrog, the technological leapfrog in Africa. And, like most, especially when you look at the fintech sector, for example, and what we saw with the mobile money and payment capacities. And there are areas where generative AI, but AI in general is actually really, creating value and also creating whole new value chain. And I think this is what makes Africa very exciting now, because it is most of the time creating new value chain. So it's a broad opportunity. In the deep tech sector in Africa, it had been run by two major ecosystems, especially because Africa is big. It's 54 countries. It's like there's a lot of disparities and differences between the ecosystem. So the major ecosystems for the AI and deep tech investment are Egypt and South Africa. You can also see some success stories happening with some AI companies being acquired by European or US firms. So, for example, the last one was in October 2022. A company called InstaDeep that use neural networks to work on like protein modelization. They've been acquired by BioNTech, the company that created the COVID vaccine. And these are some of the examples. So it's a Tunisian-based startup registered in the UK, which is also another story about how the tech ecosystem in Africa is being dependent on US or Western, basically Western ecosystems. However, you see a lot of mass market application using AI in Africa, especially, as I said at the beginning, in the fintech sector. So yes, the ecosystem is completely bubbling, and it's also
And language-wise, is it just in English or also in local languages? How do you use
that's a
it?
great question. That's actually a very important question because large language models are much, 40% of them are in 60% of them are in English, 30% of them in French, and the rest is other language in the world. And African languages, if you take South Africa, it has 11 official languages. So definitely there's some researchers in Africa who had studied the performances of ChatGPT 3.5 when using African language such as Kiswahili, and their results were really poor. That said, it has improved significantly between ChatGPT 3.5 and ChatGPT 4. And but we do need, and there's a whole area of building a large language model data set with Afrocentric languages. And it's still much more efficient when it's built by local players.
Great. And talking about the impact of AI on different verticals, maybe Cedric can tell us quickly about Web3 and AI. Was there any impact of AI generative models onto crypto space, or is it completely separate?
I think it's been about 2 years since we saw a lot of buzzwords mixed together, right? Like VR, Web3, AI. Like, that was always a good filter when you saw a deck that had all those terms in them. But I do think there is some real intersection between Web3 and AI. And I think Web3 could actually be the answer to some of the problems that we talked about. I think that education is always better than regulation. And in order to be educated and educate ourselves on the biases and the specifics of any given model, one of the prerequisites is that those models are available openly and transparently. And I think there are some Generation 3 blockchains like ICP or Filecoin and probably a few more that allow for very large data storage and computation on chain that could be used to kind of build and train these models out in the open, and thereby make them a lot more fair and easier to understand.
Okay, great. Thanks for all these many insights. I would like to thank all the panelists for giving your views. It's definitely not the end of the discussion about AI. I think it's more like the beginning. And I'm really looking forward to how AI is going to change the landscape of startups, the landscape of investments, and also how the whole economy is going to work. So anybody has a last word? We have to wrap up in 30 seconds.
The future is
Last
bright.
word. Future is bright. Alexander, something short?
Yeah, be optimistic. Don't not too pessimistic.
Lisa? You're mute still. Lisa, you're mute.
Definitely, you will be assisted by AI. It won't replace us.
We will be assisted by it. Cool. Stefan, last word to finish.
I think, as I said at the beginning, we need a diversity of players. So yes, everybody has to embrace that.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for joining. And yeah, let's roll on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. But before I let you go, Thomas, yourself, you are an expert, and I would really love to hear your last word. Where do you see AI going into the world of VC?
I think the nice thing about generative AI is now that people finally understand the power of AI. Before it was in the science labs and the researchers, and now everybody can try it out and seize it. So I feel what is happening right now is a revolution in the terms of understanding the possibilities of computer science in a very new way. And in that way, I think it will touch everybody's lives. You cannot avoid it. You just have to accept it. And it's like surfing. If the wave comes, you should learn to surf and not run away from the wave. So that's how I see it.
Great. So thanks. Let's try to catch the wave. Let's unleash the potential of AI in business. And therefore, we all need to invest. So this is actually a call for the investors out there. Invest. Most of you guys and girls are reluctant. But at the end of the day, if we're not getting it rolling, no one will get it. So Thomas, Lisa, Stefan, Edouard, Cedric, and Alexander, thank you for your insights you've shared with us today. There are many news platforms out there to gain an overview, but at the end of the day, there is nothing nicer than getting it directly from you. So hearing it from the first hand, from our experts, this is super valuable. Thank you for helping us gaining more clarity and understanding. Keep up the great work and hope to see you soon again. Take care, and dear audience, connect with them on social media. Have a great summer. Bye.
Bye.
Now, dear AI enthusiasts, let me welcome you to our forthcoming interview with the legendary Jim O'Shaughnessy. Anyone who knows Jim knows why we have the session title of Invest Like a Pro. Jim, we are absolutely privileged to have you. I'm really looking forward to diving into the strategies, insights, and the mindset of successful investor in the era of AI. But before I do that, let me introduce you to our audience. The loquacious provocateur, Jim, you are the founder and CEO of O'Shaughnessy Ventures that focuses on your deeply rooted interest in art, science, investing, and tech, marrying them with your long-held desire to establish positive sum scenarios through partnership and investments. You're also executive chair of the board of directors at Stability AI, one of the most recognized companies these days when it comes to generative AI. Jim, you are the author of 4 incredible books on investing. In fact, What Works on Wall Street, the classic guide to the best performing investment strategy of all times, is a Business Week and a New York Times business bestseller, actually. You were awarded several US patents on investment strategies and investment technologies and were called a legendary investor by Forbes. And this is incredible. I feel honored to have you on our stage. So, Jim, let's get the ball rolling and dive into our first question. Jim, your book of What Works on Wall Street, the classic guide to the best performing investment strategies of all times, came actually out back in 1998, where probably most of the audience even weren't born. So looking at that, yeah, I mean, both of us are probably much, much older. So since then, you added 4 more books to the collection, heavily focused on investing, looking at the latest technological development, especially those that are happening in the public eye. How do you see the investment landscape is changing these days since 1998?
Well, thank you first for having me. I'm delighted to be with you. As long as human beings price publicly available, and for that matter, privately available securities, I don't think that the underlying causes of investment success have changed too much. Back when radio was brand new, RCA went to a high that it could never achieve. The high it achieved was in 1929. And all of the investor enthusiasm around radio priced it to perfection. And as we all know, perfection is very rarely attained. So as long as we humans are, and our fascinations are going to be the final determinator of how much you have to pay for something, I think that we can reliably assume that we will continue to become infatuated, that we will continue to find things like AI and other innovations irresistible. And of course, what you have to try to do is take a step back, say, are there enough use cases here for this particular investment that makes it make sense? Now, the difference between private and public investing is that private investing is all really about the future. Whereas public investing, you can look at 10 years of earning results or how expensive the market is making a particular security. So what we try to do is bring the discipline of our quantitative algorithmic looking at things to the private market and say, how do we see this unfolding?
So if you talked about, do we really see enough use cases? But talking now about this emerging technology, artificial intelligence, in parallel with all this other great emerging technology coming along, isn't it very difficult to have a clue what's going to be? I mean, there are probably going to be much more use cases than we ever were possible thinking of.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something that I deeply believe. There's a great quote, I don't recall the author, but it goes along the lines of no matter how brilliant a human being, no matter how insightful, no matter how far looking, you could never ask them to make a list of things that would never occur to them. And I find that that's a great guiding quote for AI. It's one of the reasons why I'm a big supporter of open source AI as opposed to closed. The key advantage that open source AI has is numbers. We have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of coders working on the various models that we're building at Stability AI. And cognitive diversity, I think, is something that is sorely lacking when you are relying on a much smaller team to come up with, train, and innovate various artificial intelligent models. So I deeply believe that you're absolutely right. It's very, very difficult for any one person, any one group of people to come up with all of the use cases. A classic example was when we open sourced Stable Diffusion 1.5, and something like 200 innovative, incredible use cases emerged from having access to the weights and models. So I'm a big believer in betting on all of the incredible diverse talents out there, not just a few.
If I may just bridge quickly to the panel we had before, and they were saying literally that we will need less and less educated developers because through the technology and generative AI, more or less everyone who somehow has an understanding and is creative will be able to code What is your view on that?
I think that one of the most revolutionary parts of this AI innovation is this idea that it can be used as a tool. I'm a big believer in the Senator model, human plus AI. I think that AI can serve as a wonderful way to prompt you in any endeavor. It doesn't have to be just coding. It can be creativity, it can be drawing, it can be writing, etc. I think that people who are going to try to rely on just AI, you read all the news stories about this AI wrote this very long essay on Abraham Lincoln. I think that most of that, quite frankly, is going to be junk. I think that where the real beauty is going to emerge is the human working with the AI tool to iterate against something. For example, you could put all of your favorite science fiction worlds into AI and ask the AI, synthesize them. I don't want Dune universe. I don't want Tolkien universe, but I want what they share in common. But then you go back and forth. You say, no, I don't want orcs in Dune. I want this particular thing. And
Indeed,
it's through
indeed.
this iterative process. Yeah.
And I think this is
see the
also where
magic.
this, absolutely, and I think this is where exactly this human touch come in. And if I may quote Will.i.am, actually Andy, my co-founder, and I, we met him this January in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And I was actually amazed when he said, you know what, generative AI, the chat GTP or the chats, they're accelerating, they're speeding up the process. He says, I mean, it gives him much more ideas where to start with the rap. He said that before, sometimes he had 8 days until he was able to write the rap or a line of rap. And now it somehow accelerates. It gives him more idea, but at the end of the day, it's still his voice, his handwriting, his mood. And this is what you're just mentioning, it accelerates us, it augments us. So I would really like to just bridge to one of the other books that you wrote, because we could go on for ages, and we will backstage. And another question that we were looking into is you had this Invest Like a Pro, the book, The New Rules for Investing Now, which actually also came out already a few years ago in 2009. So focusing on the technological development, what do you see as a key role, as key rules now for investing today in 2023?
Well, I think that the Warren Buffett of 2040 is going to get to that position in a vastly different way than the current Warren Buffett. I think that with the new technologies, with all of the new innovations, and it isn't just related to AI. We have new space technologies. You might have seen the launch where they're going to be producing drugs in space that can't be made on Terra. And all of the various technologies coalescing. I think that the Warren Buffett again of 2040, be it a he or a she, is going to get there by being able to see a little bit further, a little bit faster. In other words, they're going to be able to identify the technologies with the greatest promise, and then they're going to also have to have the discipline to stick with the underlying investment. The human part doesn't change. We are emotional creatures. I always say that the 4 horsemen of the investment apocalypse are fear, greed, hope, and ignorance. And only ignorance can be cured, right? The others are emotions. And so oftentimes we'll get very excited about a group of investments technologies, but we have to rein that in and just keep iterating, watching, and sometimes abandoning and replacing with something that shows to be a much better bet going forward.
It just comes up to my mind something else, because you're saying the human being is actually not changing. And normally we always say, it's, I can't change others. I can only change my actions to change the reactions. And thinking of AI and how AI augments a human being in several areas, I actually think the human being will change. We need to change. I mean, we are born actually to solve problems that we invented by ourselves. And thinking of that, how do you think can we change the humans, the investors, to invest more, especially in countries, like Switzerland, where the investors are more reluctant? How can we actually empower them and give them the, how do you say, like the belief that we have to invest actually also to enable ideas to flourish?
I agree completely. And I think that I'm a big fan of David Deutsch, the quantum physics professor at Oxbridge. And one of the key lines that he has is that what we humans are universal explainers and connectors. And by that, he means we see a problem, we are able to think of an explanation that is a good explanation. And then we can construct new things from that understanding. I think that the availability of tools this time around, it's almost a meritocracy. Anyone can gain access to many of these incredibly powerful tools. And so we're seeing a flattening out of hierarchies, I think, that allows people who might have been unable to gain access to the tools, they're readily available. So how does that change human nature? I don't know that it changes human nature, but it can have a profound impact on human society and on the way people decide to invest money. So big believer, we're great at evolving, right? You know, there's the old joke about getting Wi-Fi for the first time on a plane and thinking this is the most miraculous thing in the world. And then when it goes out, what the heck? We adapt very, very quickly.
Oh, indeed, indeed. I mean, I'm just thinking of my girls learning driving now, and you know how we used to drive with no sensors and how they drive today. So yeah, let me take the last half minute. You're also an active as an executive chair board of directors Stability AI, and I would really love to know. Tell us a little bit about Stability AI and what is doing these days. What is hot? What is hot right now? What can you share with us? I'll give you in a minute.
What's hot right now? Okay, thank you. What's hot right now is the entire benchmark model group of models that we are building. We eventually would like to build out bespoke large language models, but also generative art models, etc., for corporations. We're finding from our research that many large corporations do not want a black box within their corporate structure. They want open systems that their cybersecurity specialists can interrogate every line of code. And so we anticipate that sort of large language models, multimodal AI models as a bespoke service is going to be nearly $1 trillion industry. So that's what we're focusing on, building out an entire suite. Lots of new models and products are going to be shipping and are shipping right now.
Great. Jim, with the time running out, I'd like to thank you for being with us here today. We could have gone on for hours. It's very great that we had you here sharing your valuable insights. We're very grateful. So, dear audience, feel free to connect with Jim on social media, reach out to him if you have any further questions, and especially see his books. I'm sure we all can learn a lot from Jim and his experience. Have a great summer and see you very soon. Bye, Jim.
See you soon, and thank you for having me. Goodbye.
Thank you. And now we are switching to our next thought-stimulating panel discussion, dear audience, exploring the top secret evaluation criteria from venture capitalists. Our experts on stage will shed light on the often mysterious critical factors that drive their investments decisions, providing unique insights into the world of venture capital. Let's unreveal these hidden dynamics together. Gali, Asaf, Heinrich, Benjamin, and Yorai, it is my great pleasure to welcome you on stage. Yorai, with you leading the panel, let me introduce you to our global audience first. Yorai, you bring deep technology leadership in AI and cyber technology with many years of experience in R&D at 8200, served in the intelligence corps of 8200 for 20 years, leading cyber R&D and special operation. You provide the portfolio teams with AI strategies, view, and execution mentoring. You're involved as a board member or investor in portfolio companies and are a member of the AI Advisory Board in Israel, the Ministry of Education. In your previous role, you served as head of the AI and data science at IDF unit. You founded Stargate, the National Israeli Defense Computer Vision Lab, and the Predictive Intelligence AI Lab, which actually in 2018 was awarded for the Israeli Defense Prize. Welcome on stage, Yorai. Now to you, Gali. You are an executive coach and entrepreneurship lecturer at Reichman University, guiding CEOs, investors, startup founders, and VC entrepreneurs in honing their leadership skills and maintaining balance while scaling their ventures. A trusted sounding board, you facilitate personal and professional growth, empowering individuals to build strong foundation for their venture. You work within the startup ecosystem centers around strengthening leadership skills, enhancing productivity, improving decision-making, and fostering effective communication. A seasoned businesswoman, certified coach, startup advisor, and mother of 3, you embodied an advocate principle of well-being, inner balance, and authentic leadership, enabling both yourself and your mentee to reach their goals. I definitely can learn something from you. Gali, it's our pleasure to have you with us today. Shalom. Betoda. Now to you, Asaf. I'm going to switch into Hebrew, actually. You are an investment director in Israel. You joined Intel Capital in 2018. In your role, you're focused on investing in data analytics and machine learning platforms and applications worldwide. You have been involved in several investments, including Anyscale, OPAC, Ottertune, Ponder, and Verta. Before Intel Capital, you were an engineering leading in the Intel AI team, leading multiple machine learning projects to reduce cost and increase revenue, accelerate the process, and improve products. Asaf, welcome on stage to you too. Then we have with us Heinrich, another good friend of ours, actually just around the corner in Zurich. You are the founder and CEO and managing partner of BVV. Your journey with BVV started at the launch of Lücke Corporation, a global trading platform based on blockchain technology. You saw a need for the investment of blockchain activity in the market, and with Lücke and your partners, you set out to create BVV. You have a unique experience as the previous vice president of IBM, co-CEO of ESL, and an active member of the board of Lücke and Skylink. Welcome on stage, Heinrich. Last but definitely not least, Ben, let me extend a welcome to you too and introduce you to our audience around the world. You are the co-founder of Bootstraps Lab, a permanent venture capitalist with a focus on applied AI. For over 7 years, you've actively invested in startups such as AI, Curious.io, Roger.ai, among others. As a serial entrepreneur, you've launched and exited 2 fintech startups, Predia Solutions and Inside Venture. Earlier in your career, you advised CXOs and startups founders on strategy, financing, and M&A as an investment banker, raising over 300 million and closing $5 billion in M&A transaction. Currently residing in Silicon Valley, originally from France, You are a member of AI and a respected keynote speaker on innovation, technology, investment, entrepreneurship, and an AI global thought leader. Gali, Asaf, Heinrich, Ben, and Yorai, the stage is yours. See you in 30 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you, Dalit, for the warm intro. I'm happy to open this session to discuss and share from the VC investments and so many years of leadership in AI, some perspective of what is going on through our daily life with all this AI and generative AI coming up to our lives. I'm always saying it's like going to the North Pole and then taking out your compass. You know what happens. It keeps spinning around. You have to decide of direction and move forward. The former tools that you used to consider and take with you are no longer relevant. You have to invent new tools, new approaches, new theses, and this is what we want to share and discuss today. So great to be here, and I'm moving straight forward. Well, I think, Ben, you've been in the business for a long time, investing in AI even before others even thought of that direction. Like my own firm, we are holding, the flag of AI, trying to push forward with theses and ideas. So I would like to start with the past. How is it to lead in AI investment? Before it was a hype. What can we take from your experience? And what are the key lessons that you can share with us?
Yeah, thank you. It's been quite a ride. I mean, it's kind of funny now that the world is aware of the capabilities, and frankly, Gen AI is just one thing that the world has been talking about. But at the risk of disappointing people, I think if you're building a company out there, you should not lose sight of the fact that the hardest journey is still. Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Don't lose sight of the fact that at the end of the day, nobody's going to buy your product because you're using AI, right? You need to solve a real world problem. You need to create utility value, and your product market fit and scalable product market fit, I would argue, is still the hardest part of the journey. So things we've learned, and we knew early on investing in AI, was that narrow AI at the time was absolutely where it was at. You want to focus on things that work well, and you can outcompete the Googles and Amazons of the world 10-1 on any given use cases that really focus on, and especially if you put yourself in the context of the workflow of your customers. It's not just an algorithm. It's not just getting accuracy. It's about solving a problem. The number one killer of startups is still team dynamic, and I'm sure Gali would be very happy to talk about that. So that hasn't changed. Some of the core fundamental of investing in disruptive technology have not changed. The team is so important. From the very early stages where we invest in, you see an importance of combining both deep domain knowledge, expertise, and understand what the technology can do. And often these live in different brains. And so that time dynamic, the vision, is extremely important. And of course, the data modes. Can you get access to proprietary data? Because everybody can write software, copy your software, but people can't copy your data or drive the insights that you're going to get from that. So we felt this is always a pretty efficient data mode. And of course, we've always focused on the enterprise. So I'm sure we'll talk a lot about other trends and consumers, and Gen AI is a great place to talk about those things.
Thank you. Well, I think sometimes we all get blamed using the hype, promoting our own, initiatives, and I wonder if AI is a hype, and well, it is a hype. How to look at it? So, Heinrich, it would be great if you can show us how you can, separate between the hype and real substance, and how can you work in a dynamic world where there is a quite thick layer of hype or fashion or whatever phrase you would choose.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. Yes, AI is clearly a hype, and it's hyped, but I would say rightly so. The estimates of the economic impact of AI, they range between 13 trillion and 80 trillion, in around 7 years. And if you look at the world gross domestic product, that is 110 trillion today around. So it is fully justified that we have the hype. And I think we just have to see what is the really business in there, and where can I as an investor, you or we all as investors with our different background invest. And I think there is the expectation that AI develops like some other areas. I think we have already around today 12, 13,000, some estimates are 20,000 companies around the world that deserve the tag being an AI company. So it becomes a complexity management exercise. And I think the biggest mistake you could do is that you get, the recommendation from the friend about some cool AI company that he has seen. And in reality, there are already existing like 50 or 100 companies that do the same. And that's what you need to filter out. You need to find the 5 ones that could be the top ones 5 years down the road or 7 years down the road, and you need to see if they're accessible to you. So my biggest advice to see through the hype is to do that exercise and to look for substance. And we heard today earlier in the conference, the substance is about specific access to data, especially, having your own model. Substance is also having extraordinary teams. I see so many startups in early stage where the teams are kind of casual occasional teams, and you see others where okay, this is cool entrepreneurs combined with world experts in an area that with some proprietary IP, and that's already the first ingredient. And I think that's substance that then you explore further.
Thank you. And I think, and Asaf, please help me here. Within the AI hype, we have the generative AI super hype, if I can call it. It's like a more dense hype, and we all kind of feeling that every knock on the door is a new startup with doing something with generating whatever you can think of. And I wonder, Asaf, within that hype, isn't it easier to build AI ventures, with all the tools coming out there with generative AI? It looks like, everyone can do that, every couple of founders, not talking about their quality as business persons, but, they can do anything. You have the platforms, you have the availability. Well, no more IP, no more barrier to entry. Generative AI solved everything. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think first of all, I would like to call it foundation models. Generative AI is one aspect of foundation models. You can do many things, not only generate new data. But the term is generative AI. Now, it's lowered the bar for using models, but it's not necessarily lowered the bar for machine learning product. Like if you look on, we don't have yet public companies that sell an AI product. And if you go and look how many AI company we have in the market that sells beyond $100 million, the number is still low. And I think that, and deep learning is here over a decade. The foundation of generative AI transformer, it's here from 2017, and the breakthrough been done years ago. But we haven't seen a product until ChatGPT appeared. And the reason for that is the ability to build a full stack solution that is off the shelf product and not necessarily a tailor-made solution. So the road from a foundation model algorithm to a full stack product, which is off the shelf, is still very hard.
Great. Gali, you've been engaging with the founders for a long time, and I want your perspective of what happened in the last year. Is something changed with the way founders approach their venture? Is this thing of generative AI and more demand for AI, not only generative, I agree with Asaf here, is something changed with the culture, with the nature of those ventures, the way they bootstrap their companies, the way they think, with the vision setting. What's on the founders' side of your vision?
So, hi, good evening, Uri and everyone. So yeah, I think a lot has changed in the recent year. First of all, with everything going on in the macroeconomic situation and crisis for every entrepreneurs in the world. And we speak about VUCA environment, like the volatile and uncertain and complex and ambiguous as environment that founders are living in as a constant. So in the recent year, it's even much more emphasized and stronger, and everything is changing. And I think it changed the things in few manners. So I'll mention few. First of all, when investors are now reaching out to companies and they are actually trying to choose which is the right company to invest in. So I think that even more than in the past, like Ben and Heinrich mentioned, the team that they choose to invest in is very, very, very crucial in the way that they choose them. And if I'll emphasize like 2 points in that manner, is the ability of the teams to be agile and flexible to everything that is going on. And on the other side goes together is their ability to have the learnability and the growth mindset to address all the changes that there are actually, because the environment is changing very, very fast. And what was true yesterday with the pace of the new technology that it changes every time. We had the ChatGPT 3, now it's the ChatGPT 4, and in few more in no time the LLM models will change and evolve. So our ability to keep up the pace and be agile in our mindset and to be elastic, not to be focused or in love too much with the specific direction that we're going, and the ability to change it where it goes, it's very, very important. And that's like where the growth mindset is actually getting in, the ability of us to adapt to the changes. And together with this, also for the investors, when they look on the founders, to really try to see which teams and which founders will have the resilience and the ability over time to be that adaptive and to stand and to go through all those changes. So this is a little bit from that side. And from the sides of the founders, the other side of it is like they are in some kind of a stress. And there are many startups that were working on very deep technologies for the last 3, 4, 5 years, and all of a sudden came OpenAI and ChatGPT and all the LLMs, and overnight what they focused on and what they worked on is simply not relevant, because there's a new technology that changes everything. So again, those who are not, I like to call it coachable, those who doesn't own this mindset and are not up to make those changes in a very, very high pace, and really not to be too stuck on what they've done so far, to be in love too much with the idea or the direction that they were going to, and to be able to pivot, for example, if they need. This is one thing. And also how they are being more productive in the way that they manage their resources. So I'll be happy to elaborate on this later on.
Thank you. I think one thing that I feel from founders is that they are trying to look at us, investors, and try to be more agile to fit exactly into our investment thesis, which we are not quite sure of them.
And you don't
so I
know
think
as well. You also don't know where it will lead and where it will go.
So I'm always saying it's like dancing, like from side to side. Just it's a little bit like dancing with the gorilla. You know how you dance with the gorilla, the way she wants or it wants. So let's think who is the gorilla here. I think with the markets down, we are the gorillas. So let's try with the same question for everyone. We'll start with Ben, and then Heinrich, and then Asaf. I want you give those founders your investment thesis. What exactly is your investment thesis in the age of generative AI, in a clear sentence, clear way for them to understand and adjust?
I'll start. Thank you, Yeah, right. So I think for us, we lead rounds at the seed stage, mature seed, and we've always invested in enterprise AI technology. So we looked at applied AI across 6 vertical. We have thematics, how we see the world evolving and where AI is going to have the massive impact. So future of work, mobility, health, digital infrastructure, financial infrastructure, which we call it different from digital, and then climate and energy. And so these are the 6 kind of core bucket. I would like to call them the pillars of society. As society digitalizes extremely fast, I think we're going to see AI penetrating these sectors and touching a lot of things. As we do so, I think it's extremely disruptive for the enterprise. I think enterprises have dealt with disruption of technology before, but this is unlike others. And why it's unlike others is because it's changing the very core fundamental product and value and services that you're offering today. You no longer manufacture a lamp, you manufacture a smart lamp. And that has deep implication down the supply chain and how you market it and how you position in your business model. And I think that is where most corporations have not really started to understand the disruptive power of AI in that way. So, my investment thesis is, look, you need to be a shepherd of the future. As a founder, you're building the future. And so don't build a future where humans are irrelevant. I think we're very much proponents of AI and human augmented intelligence. I think we can learn from each other. And we've seen that even in the game of Go, where our imagination can be stretched by AI systems and we can become better. So I have this positive vision of the future, but it needs to be built by the people as well. And we need to make sure that generative AI systems, unfortunately, are not to be trusted. And so they are fantastic tools for certain context, but you're going to need to look carefully at the context in which you apply them. Because in the enterprise, we've invested in LLM technologies 7 years ago, one of the pioneers in the industry. And today he has a product that is using the best of the LLMs world without an hallucination, that is to be trusted and train on the data that is proprietary from the company and keep it in silos. And so I think, again, people need to be very careful into the context in which they apply AI technology and what vision they have for it.
Thank you. Henrik, your take?
Yeah, we are also an early stage investor, so seed stage. We like that stage when you have your first even small revenue, and then you need to scale up. This is our core competence, is to scale up emerging tech plays, to scale them also up when nobody believes in it, other than a few people and ourselves. Our focus is very clear in deep vertical AI applications, in RegTech, in real estate, in health, and in other sectors, because we believe that fits very well, really a long-term venture model. We believe very strongly in B2B SaaS models, because B2B SaaS models, especially in Europe, have as an investor, a much better risk-reward profile than pure B2C model. Last but not least, we like to find the last pieces of infrastructure in this evolving ecosystem of infrastructure and middleware in the AI space. And then comes the icing of the cake. I believe very much if you merge that a little bit with Web3 business models, because I think Web3 business models can be applied in that space, and we know it from companies like Render, could create very cool startups that we are very interested in.
Definitely. Asaf, a little bit about your thesis and how to invest in AI, where?
So we are an investor in mainly B2B. Sweet spot is Series A and Series B. That's 80% of our investment, but we do as well seed round. Then we invest in several foundation models company already in the last several years. I think my recommendation to entrepreneurs are think of foundation model generative AI as a database. There is no one database that the company uses. There are many specific database target for different use cases, different types of database, scale, and pace. So we think the foundation models will be like that. There will be many specific foundation models. Find the one that suits you, bring it on, and build a solution that is hybrid and combine multidisciplinary between controlling the foundation model, ability to update it and control it, and not only use external available data, together with building on top of it all the layers that any AI solution need, like APIs and prompting and fine-tune and retraining, and at the end supply a solution that solves a business problem. And that's our recommendation to. It's hard to see like solutions like ChatGPT that are Swiss Army knife that can do 15 different things, but at the end, their cost, even the compute cost, is huge. So you need to reduce the compute cost. And in order to do that, you need to decrease the algorithm, decrease the compute, and fine-tune the model and build the layers on top that actually encapsulate the models itself. I think what foundation models bring is bringing more software developers ability to build solutions like that on top, because not everyone need to train from scratch, but training, it doesn't mean that we don't need to train anymore and fine-tune models.
Thank you. Gali, it looks like investors are recalculating route, considering their investment thesis. So maybe you can help us with the psychological side of those investments. Opportunities are relevant to how human evolution is taking AI, and what are the psychological influences on those theses. And I would like to hear from your side, what could be important to understand and to look at when you're approaching an investment, when you investigate kind of a solution? How could you take into consideration those psychological themes that AI brings to the table with clients, with go-to-market side, and so forth?
Yeah. So it's a big question. It has many elements in it, and I'll try to mark a few things that I think are important. So whether you're an investor that thinking about now to invest in a company, and whether you are the CEO, the founder yourself that is actually building now the company, I think that because of the technology and because of the big potential that it has, and because of also the big risks that it entails in it, so there are a few factors that we have to consider as human beings, okay? Because we are still human beings and this is still AI. So a few things are I'll mark here trust, and I'll mark here the things around the ethical questions, and maybe around the user experience. So I'll touch base those three topics. So trust, you can trust is the most fundamental thing between founders, and I think it's also the most fundamental things between the investors and the founders themselves, and also between the team and the startup to the users. So the question is, how do we make sure that this trust is not going anywhere, and that everything is is with full accuracy and transparency, and how we can really see all the things that are reliable, okay, that we're taking it into consideration. And this is something very important, because with a lot of data sources, which also takes us to the ethical considerations, so many data sources that we need to see that we bring them from the right places. That one of the problems, for example, with the ChatGPT is that, okay, it gives you a great answer, but it's not necessarily the right answer, and we have to be very critical to understand if the answer that we've got is the right one, and if it took into consideration all the right elements towards it, because otherwise the product or the result that we will provide is actually not true, although it sounds very, very convincing. So ethical questions also goes to the databases and the decision making that we make into this thing, and I think that as the founders needs to see again the transparency and the fairness of the things, and to really give the users, the customers, the understanding that they can trust the product, trust the service, this thing. I think that maybe also it has to do a lot with the social dynamics, all the social dynamics within the startup, within the team, and also how it impacts the social dynamic of society. I think that the generative AI solutions and products that we have today, maybe I'll emphasize it on one thing that it's really close to my heart, all the issues around mental health, which is one of the biggest problems that we have nowadays for humanity, loneliness and mental health issues. So using generative AI technologies can really help in many manners to provide more tools and to replace several levels of treatment and therapy, and to help in several elements that can really make a difference for people. But what happens later on? You know, what happens in a... Everyone agree? Yeah, okay, it disappeared for a second. How do we make sure that we really provide the right help and the right support, and that really, for example, in mental health, that the tools that we provide to the social dynamic is really true and is really helping people and not going to another places. So these are things that I think we should take into consideration while think these products and things. And on another note, when we think about, for example, empathy, okay, one of the things that the generative AI and the ChatGPT is now trying to work very hard to figure out, which still differentiate us as humans from the machine, is really how we incorporate empathy and psychological aspects into the wording, into the experience, to really make the users feel that it's real. Now, on the one hand, it's great, and on the other hand, it's risky, because what will be the difference if we will succeed to implement everything? So I think that to sum it up, I think that we need to be very creative and be very grateful for all the opportunities that we have now with this technology, but to know its restrictions and to see how we take care of humanity and the users and ourselves as founders, to have the right constraints that we need in order to get to the right places.
Thank you. I think you mentioned not only the psychological part, but also the ethical related to privacy and honesty and the way we can work with those platforms. And I wonder, and maybe Asaf, you mentioned you are focused on enterprise solutions. Sometimes the enterprise, you get pushbacks, you get all kinds of barriers, not only the ethical and the privacy, but also some others. I would like to hear from you. What are the barriers that you see when trying to promote enterprise focused venture with generative AI and AI together?
I think the first thing that we see around enterprise is the need for explainability. When a generative AI solution gives some kind of a response or recommendation, you need to state where the data come from and why he gave this data. So definitely explainability is needed. We've seen it, by the way, not only from generative AI, even 2 decades ago when we implemented machine learning solution. People are willing to tolerate human mistakes that are accurate in 50%, but less tolerate for a machine mistake that's accurate in 80%. And that's why explainability is a must in the enterprise. We need to explain why we gave this recommendation and give the data behind it. I already mentioned the need to fine-tune for enterprise data. Yes, there is a lot of power in those foundation models that learn from the general available, especially languages, but we want to optimize for a specific use case. And let's, for example, you want to give technicians in the manufacturing floor able to ask questions on machines and bugs and how to fix that. That's not exist in the B2C world. Multimodality is also an issue. Not everything is text. We have tables, we have images. We need to extract knowledge from that. And enterprise at the end will need it in a containerized way. How do you put everything in one container, deploy it, and make it run everywhere, which means on-prem, on cloud, in a highly efficient way. And cost is a high in the consideration, because those models are highly costly for inference, and it's need to have an ROI.
Thank you very much. And I think we are short in time. So I want to give each and every one of you 30 seconds to give his crystal ball angle and vision. How are we going to see AI in 20 years from now? So we'll start with you, Gali. 20 years from now, what is going to change?
Wow. First of all, I think we have 10 seconds for everyone, so I'm not sure that we have the time. But a lot, I don't know what's going to change. A lot is going to change. And I think that we need to be able to change with the change.
Great.
I think our imagination is the limit.
As a 20 years in the business, I will say that it will go slower than we think.
I agree with that. It will go slower than we think, but I think it's nearly impossible to imagine what will be in 20 years. It will be crazy. That's what I think.
I agree.
Well, let's stay tuned, right?
Crazy good, Heinrich.
Crazy good, of course, crazy good. Because I also trust that lawmakers will come up, and they do already in the EU, with some regulation, with transparency requirements, and I just hope that that will go in a way that we get the good from the technology and keep the bad a bit under control.
And Gali, I'd be careful with using ChatGPT for mental health.
Anyway, thank you very much. It was wonderful, and I learned a lot, and it was great to meet. Hope to meet you in face-to-face soon. So please take care, and see you in, I don't know, 20 years?
Hopefully much sooner. Hopefully much sooner. But before you're leaving, Jorai, also
Not
you...
less than 20 years.
Also you as an expert, Jorai, I would like to have a final quote from your side.
Well, I gave it on the beginning. You know, when you are so advanced and you already reach your North Pole, your compass is spinning around. This is the time where you can look for new opportunities, new challenges, and I think this is where we all are with AI and generative AI. And it was fun discussing it. I'm open to questions.
Great.
Anytime.
Okay, so Gali Assaf, Heinrich, Ben, and Jorai on the top secret evaluation criteria from venture capitalists. It was great to have you all with us, sharing your insights, and the chat is going really good. So dear audience, reach out to our panelists with your question, connect with them on LinkedIn. I'm really thrilled how this is going on. So have a great summer. Take care and hope to see you very, very soon also personally. Shalom v'toda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dalit.
Now, dear audience, we arrive at the next section of our conference, focusing on investing in child-centered AI for more equitable future returns. Through a real-world use case, we will explore how targeted AI investments can promote social equity, shaping a brighter, more inclusive future for our children. Let's uncover these potential returns together in the upcoming use case presented both to the global reaching stage by Bo Percival and David Casillas. Bob and David, welcome on stage. Let me introduce you first to our audience. Bob, you are a gig for a good, working at the crossroad of technology and development, passionately discovering insights within behavior economics, innovation, and social justice. Over the past decade, you've contributed extensively to open innovation for development in diverse areas such as humanitarian response, education, HIV, LGBT rights, youth economic empowerment, and water sanitation and hygiene, sparking innovation in more than 25 countries globally. Thanks for doing that. With qualification in psychology, design, economics, marketing, and entrepreneurship, you employ this unique mix daily. Your current role as senior advisor for UNICEF Office of Innovation Venture Team perfectly amalgamates your passion and pursuits. Bob, we are honored to have you here on stage. Now to you, David, joining us today actually from Mexico City. Thanks for being with us, David. You are an engineer in information technology and intelligent systems. Currently, you serve as a director of technology at Pixframe Studios, a company dedicated to developing educational technology with AI with the support of the UNICEF Innovation Fund. You have been involved in multiple educational projects in Latin America, including the Mexican government distance education strategy during the pandemic. Bo in Stockholm, David in Mexico City. The virtual stage is yours.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having us. It's a real privilege and a pleasure to be here. And I'm going to be relatively short so that I can hand over to David to talk a little bit more about the work that we're doing. So my name, as mentioned, is Bo Percival. I'm the Senior Advisor for Innovation for the Office of Innovation in UNICEF. And my fortune is to support a team that invests in people around the world and companies that are really looking at frontier technologies to move significant change for children. I'm looking for a presentation that hopefully will come up in just a second. Fantastic. So the Office of Innovation works in 190 countries. We are representative, a team within UNICEF, and we span across 5 different core areas and core locations. My job right now is to get through this as quickly as possible so we can really put the spotlight on to David to talk about his work. But just briefly, we look at this as kind of a continuation when it comes to innovation. So a continuum, sorry. So getting from like the pilot stage, accelerating solutions, and then transitioning them to scale so that they're ready to scale for the benefit of children all over the globe. The Venture Fund, which is a venture fund investing mechanism within UNICEF, over the time has invested about $35 million. And we're really, and I should also mention, we have a crypto fund as well. So we invest in both ETH and Bitcoin. And what we do is we really try to test and challenge new technologies that are coming up that have the potential for radical change for children. So we do this by testing them internally and then also investing in early stage investments, which we'll hear more from David in a second. We really are the risk takers, the trail breakers, and the map makers. And that's kind of how we bring people together to really push the boundaries of what's possible within the UN system and push the boundaries of what's possible for children and using technology to this advantage. And the way I like to think about this is we pursue radical joy for every child. And joy here is an acronym for just and open innovation. So we really make sure that our innovation is accessible, is inclusive, and our returns that we're looking for is not necessarily equity, but equitable technologies. I will really quickly jump over this, but essentially what we do is we work in two specific areas, or 3 specific areas. One around the testing. So when new solutions come in, how can we use them within the organization? Investing in early stage startups, which you'll hear from David in a second. And then finally, we really are pushing open source and technologies and digital public goods. So this is where we want to make sure that the equity that we get in return is not necessarily about dollars, but is about accessibility to new technologies across the globe. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to David to talk us a little bit through their use case.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you, Bo. So it's a privilege for us to being here and talk a little bit to you about Pixframe Studios, our company, and the work that we are developing with the help of UNICEF. Well, Pixframe Studios is a company that has been around a lot of years, I think 10 years. It started with a software development contest that we won worldwide with one of our first developments and products in this company. So this was a problem that we first encountered and we started to taking care of. And it's that 1 of 5 children have learning or attention issues. This was the first problem that we addressed in the company. And nowadays we are a company that actually develops platforms, educational platforms, using these 3 pillars. Narrative, we've made them like a video game using the gamification theory, and obviously AI. Why are we using AI in our solutions? Obviously, because the AI can provide personalized learning experiences. and that's what we are taking advantage. That we are is our thesis, and it's the idea that we are working on right now to develop all our solutions. Obviously, they can recommend courses based on the students' interests and abilities. We think that in the the education, it's not the same path for everyone, and every children and every person learns different, and in our his own based and with his own abilities. So we are using AI to provide a specific learning paths and also feedback to the teachers about the abilities and the knowledge that the children or the users has at that is at specific periods of time. Um, so how does this works? We think like the normal education or the traditional way to learn is that you go like in a serial path of topics. For example, you go to the subject one, then subject two, then subject three, etc. And this is how the school works. And obviously, all the children, all the people in the same class has to go to the same pattern of topics that everyone else. So, in our point of view, the education and using AI technologies, first is to have an evaluation to know what the user actually knows about some topic, um, and obviously start the education or the process in that specific topic. And then in the evaluation of that topic, we can see if there's a previous topic that that specific user doesn't know, and actually travel to another topic and start jumping topic to topic, not in a serialized way, but in the way that that person should do to actually gain the ability and actually learn faster and better. Um, we are using a specific AI technology to achieve this. So we build our own AI model, right, to start to analyze and comprehend which parts of specific topics does the user doesn't know, and try to go for them in this learning path. So obviously, all our applications are data driven, and they have the streamlined teacher workload. I'm gonna show you a little bit about some of our products. The first is called Towi. Towi, it was our first product, and it was a kind of platform game based with narrative that its specific purpose is to develop cognitive skills on children. Cognitive skills as memory, attention, and those are the abilities that every person needs to actually learn or to develop in this world. So how we do it? We do a cognitive assessment. Then in that assessment, we know which parts or which abilities we have to train with each user. Then we develop training games, and we track the process all along the application. Um, this specific product has 3 published scientific papers proving that the usage of these kind of platforms and AI actually benefits uh, the development of the children or the person that they are using. Right now, we have more than 400,000 users, and we are closing the deal with the Guatemalan government of for 1.5 million users on that country. But in the development of the company, we realized that there are another topics that we want to address, like math. So we developed a platform, 2 platforms using the same idea, technology, narrative, gamification, and AI to develop math skills. And for example, this Mathematia, it's a product that we developed with the local country office of UNICEF. because they needed to develop a platform to address this problem using our core technology, because math is the second problem or issue that the kids in Mexico are dropping off the school. They don't learn math well, and they drop school because of this. So we developed with them this platform using the same technology and the same product basis. So now we in Pixframe are trying to gathering an investment round. We want to expand and to get to more countries and expand the products all over the region. So thank you very much for this session, and we're privileged to be here. Thank you.
Thanks a
very
lot.
much, David.
Thanks a lot, Bo and David. A heartfelt thanks to both of you. I think this is a very special area where we see how AI can support. And for me, as a mother of two young women, there is nothing more important than that we can be here for our children. And I would like just to say something. Most of you probably don't know, I'm a mathematician. And for me, mathematics is literally the logical way of thinking. And listening to you, how you support the children to learn math, I think this is one of the most important things. It's not about counting. It's about giving them the sense for logical thinking. And if we will find the right ways to support them, to enable them to understand mathematics, what is literally a global language, I think we did a lot. And if I may, I would love actually to have a follow-up with you, because we have a solution for kids that started analog, and I think it's based on games. I would really love to check out that with you. I think there is nothing better than we can do and invest in our children. Although we're talking about investment in AI, if we can do this for the good of the kids, let's do it. Thanks a lot for being with us here today. Bob and David, take care and talk to you soon, hopefully also in person.
Thanks very much.
Most welcome. Wow, now, dear audience, we're off to our next and actually last panel discussion of the day. We're privileged to have with us another 5 renowned experts on the virtual stage, all set to delve into the intriguing intersection of venture capital and AI. What else? The subject of this coming discourse is AI needs VCs and VCs need AI. I actually really like that. This will probe into the interrelation between these two spheres and their influence on the innovation landscape. Dear audience, get ready for a captivating exploration of this essential synergy. And let me introduce you to the experts on the stage. Jacqueline, Daniel, Benny, Philippe, and Massimo, welcome on stage. Benny, with you leading the panel discussion, let me introduce you first. קודם כל, נעים מאוד להכיר, Benny. Benny, you serve at the head of Banco BV in Israel and as a strategic advisor for Evolution.inc, a pioneering AI for AI system generator. With an MBA from the Wharton School and a past experience as a founding member of Azure, Microsoft Cloud, and AI, you have a rich professional background. Additionally, you were an ambassador to the Meaningful Life Center and chair of Tiger 21 in Tel Aviv. Your mission is to act as a catalyst to wealth creators, aiding each member in their personal journey to define and amplify the legacy they aim to live in this world, encouraging them to lead a meaningful life. Welcome on stage, Benny. Now to you, Jacqueline. Jacqueline, you are a seasoned entrepreneur and leader with over 20 years of experience. For the past 8 years, you have served as a venture capitalist, board member, lecturer, public speaker, and advocate for gender equality and inclusion. You're the founder and CEO of Privilege Management SA, specializing in financial consulting for families and institutions. Moreover, you co-founded Privilege Venture SA, a rapidly growing seed an early-stage venture capital firm. Jacqueline, we're thrilled to welcome you on our stage today. With you, we have Danielle. Hi, Danielle. We're very happy to have you with us today, too. You are a passionate operator at the intersection of technology and people, driven by value creation and the impact that can be achieved through strategic investments. Through your career, you have worked in and with startups in both product and SaaS technology companies with a focus on AI, AR, and cloud platforms. Having experienced both acquisitions and failure, you know how to gritty, agile, and take calculated risk. It is all about making data-driven decisions and driving value. Danielle, a warm welcome. Then we have Philip, our dear friend. Let me extend a welcome to you too and introduce you to our audience. Philip, you are the co-founder and managing director at Firefly Venture Partners, a Silicon Valley firm investing in data and intelligence-focused startups. An international tech leader, you previously co-founded Accenture Interactive, applying early AI to marketing optimization. Your investment portfolio includes companies like Data World, Edgevana, and Beekeeper. Before Firefly, you led multiple tech companies, proving your leadership in data, AI, and machine learning-centered activities. You hold an MBA from the University of Pennsylvania and a bachelor from the University of Applied Science, Zurich. Originally from Switzerland, you have resided in Silicon Valley since 2001. Philip, it is an honor to have you with us here. Can't wait to hear your views. Then we do have Massimo. Dear Massimo, it's always great to have you with us on stage again. Let me still introduce you to those who don't know you. Massimo, you are a renowned professional in the AI and blockchain field, applied lateral thinking to solve complex business problems. With experience as a UN global expert in AI, blockchain, metaverse, and NFTs, you currently serve as an AI and blockchain expert at Niva, a leading venture capital firm in Italy, and an AI ethics expert at the International Electronical Technical Commission, leveraging 20 years in international finance and fintech professorship roles in Brazil, Italy, and China. You advise as organizations and startups, actually globally. A sought-after speaker, you share insights on emerging tech topics and have lived in Europe, China, the US, and South America. You are fluent in Italian, English, and Portuguese, so you can communicate very effectively. Massimo, Jacqueline, Danielle, Philippe, and Benny, the stage is yours. See you in 30 minutes.
Thank you very much. Ciao, Massimo.
Ciao.
I don't know if I should start in Portuguese or in Italian, but maybe I will keep it English for now. So it's a pleasure to have you all here. I must say I'm really honored and humbled to be around such a great team. I wanted maybe to start with the very, very basics. I think nowadays people talk a lot about many different things, including AI, now generative AI. Maybe I'll start with Massimo. I mean, we hear so much buzz, but can you maybe take a minute or two just to define what do we actually mean by generative AI? What's new about it versus just AI?
Yeah, generative AI is the type of AI system capable of generating text, images, or other media in response to prompts. That's essentially what it is. Microsoft is rolling out its own service powered by generative AI, as we all know. Generative AI platforms have immense potential to transform storytelling and collaboration for companies. Startups in generative AI are attracting investments even amid venture capital slowdown nowadays. Legal concerns related to content these models use and potential to incorrect or even offensive results to a user's inquiry are important at this stage when we talk about generative AI. As we all know, ChatGPT already attracted tens of millions of users, and chatbot that can write detailed essays and provide specific responses to queries about anything are what we call generative AI. AI technology has brought about tremendous change to conventional teaching as well, and ChatGPT is causing what we call the AI revolution after the Industrial Revolution. Just in a few words.
Thank you very much, Massimo. Grazie. I would like maybe to switch a little bit to the other side of the pen. I wanted maybe to pick on Jacqueline now, if I may. I personally, I spent 16 years at Microsoft and was employee number 6 on the Microsoft Cloud and AI group. It was not even called Azure at the time. And I'm still fascinated. I have to say that after almost 2 decades in AI, the past 6 months have been crazy. One of the things that intrigues me a little bit, I also had a tenure as an investor, is sometimes you need to kind of walk the talk, right? And also lead by example. And I wonder if you could share a little bit about your experience as you invest in seed stage companies for several years now. Obviously, you look a lot younger than I am, but still a lot of experience. Could you tell us a little bit about, do you actually use or see your colleagues use AI for example, scouting startups for investment? And if so, how is it used today?
Thank you very much, Benny, for this introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. First of all, I like what you said, walk the talk. It's one of my preferred expressions because it is actually very important. So back to your question, do we use AI in our scouting program or some of our colleagues? I have to say that, we are a small firm in Switzerland investing in pre-seed and seed stage. And as most of VCs, actually, it is very important to talk to the people. So we still, and we are, the human part is still very important when we invest in companies. Of course, since I've started in VC in about 2016, the world has changed tremendously in the way we use, of course, this type of, I would say, technology, instruments, whatever you want to call it. And we have tried in the past a few companies that were supporting VC or investors in general to scout potential deals, right? That's what's about. As a VC investor, you need to find the best company. So how can you find it? When can you find quicker and faster than the others so that you can invest into it? I have to say that the first experiments we made were not so great. So essentially, you provided kind of criteria on what you were looking, and the machine was providing you potential deals. And I have to say, initially, we were not very impressed. So we went back to the old way of doing things. Lately, we have looked again and talked again on how we could actually leverage on AI to scout, especially when you want to look at bigger deal flows to an increased number of deals, because it could actually help you filter much quicker. One of the things as a VC investor you need to do is actually filter very quickly, and you need to say a lot of no's and less yes. So if you have an instrument, a technology that can help you filter very quickly, that's definitely something that would help. As of today, so we don't really use it as much as we could, but definitely it's something we will look into more and more.
Clear. Very good. Thank you for that. And maybe I'll switch to Philip, talking about the old way of doing things. I think we both graduated from Wharton around 15 years ago or so. I recently actually had a course from Wharton on AI for business, and actually quite learned some new things. So I'm curious about, you've been in the AI space for a while, I guess 1 or 2 decades, sort of like me. So why now? Why all this fever now? Why, we know that OpenAI, ChatGPT, and DALL-E, and lighten up a lot of people. But beyond that, why is this thing became so hot all of a sudden? What's your reading on that?
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm super excited. And well, it's interesting, right? Like, it really started back in the 40s. I think the first research paper on neural networks was written in, I think, 42 or 43. And we're looking at this for quite some time. Look, I think for every topic, there needs to be a catalyst that makes it visible at scale, right? And I think both visible and scale is important. Both words are important. And at Firefly, we kind of call it seminal tipping points. We watch out for those rigorously as they heavily impact an investment case. You might be investing in the right topic or in the right company, but you might be investing too early. And so best is usually to invest as a contrarian, as somebody who thinks, who sees something that others don't see, right before or during the period of a seminal tipping point. And when we talk about seminal tipping points, like, they're usually very easy to see after the fact, but they're actually very hard to see when you're in or when you're shortly in front of them. And with AI, we definitely think kind of the Chat GPT moment was one of those tipping points, right? We've seen kind of a brilliant announcement, and it was not just an announcement by OpenAI and Microsoft as a partnership, as kind of a large company credentializing something with Microsoft's footprint in the enterprise space is massive. But they didn't just announce something; they actually did kind of what's really working, which is show rather than tell. They launched it, millions of people, like, was it like 1 million users within 5 days and 100 million users within 2 months or something like this, which is massive take up. And we all experienced very quickly how meaningful things like AI can be for everybody. And before that, it was really just about kind of R&D progress and sandbox use cases like chess games and Go and all of these things we heard about before. And we have seen this before as well, right? In other tech areas such as software as a service. When Salesforce started out to push software as a service, it took many years for them to get like to the tipping point where it really took off and started to grow, and they became kind of the icebreaker of the SaaS movement. And we can point back actually to your early days at Microsoft, right? In your group, cloud computing or AWS, Amazon was the pioneer. And it took them many years to convince and kind of show that it can actually be really valuable. And the seminal tipping point for cloud computing, what we see today, was many years later after AWS was formed. So I think we need to always wonder, like, was this now the seminal tipping point or was it not? We at Firefly, we believe it is, but we could also be wrong. But we will only know in the future.
Yeah, indeed. Things that we don't know are the ones that can be sort of tricky, but we'll talk about that later. Maybe you get a little bit our hands a little bit more dirty on technology a little bit. Maybe I wanted to ask Danielle. She's got some interesting experience on that space, and I wanted maybe her to share. In my experience, I was first product manager for software as a service at Microsoft. Nobody even knew what that was at Microsoft in 2004. But there's a lot of different ways that people consume those sort of technologies, right? So ChatGPT is an example where I have kind of a simple intuitive UI. My son is 9 years old and he's already asking his queries in Hebrew and comparing to them in English or whatever. But there's many different ways we consume technologies, APIs, for example, and different things. And that's probably part of the story, a bigger story there. So maybe, Daniel, would you mind talking a little bit about it? Talk a little bit about APIs or other ways that we can consume that and why that's important for generative AI.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's funny that you touched on product manager because the last couple of years it's been all the rage. But before that, it was like no one really knew what that was. And so API really kind of stands for application program interface. And it's not as complicated. It's really kind of this set of rules and protocols that allows different software applications to communicate and interact with each other. And so there's a couple examples that are a little bit more notable in terms of like Google's Cloud Vision. So developers can integrate actually into this image recognition and analysis to intertwine into their applications. Stripe is a really great example as well. They have online payment processing. Philip and I were just kind of talking about before in the background, there's a lot of fires right now happening in North America, and I'm here in Canada, and the last couple of days have been pretty smoky. And so there's open weather apps where you can actually, integrate into these APIs, and you might be able to use the data to figure out, where you figure out where to draw your resources from or where to actually fight the fires. And so these APIs really kind of allow for this integration at scale, which is something that's interesting. And we heard a lot of this from the panelists before, just in terms of the important thing with models is that you need access to strong data. And so in the context of generative AI, APIs can actually play a crucial role in kind of facilitating and integrating and utilizing kind of these AI models as a service. And so a couple of different areas that we've seen or I've kind of seen is, just this model access. So suddenly you can have access to pre-trained models instead of building them from scratch. So for instance, with ChatGPT, and then the scalability and performance. And so, usually when we're looking at generative AI models or any kind of large scale model, they can be computationally intensive. But when you're utilizing these APIs, developers can leverage the infrastructure and the computational capabilities without actually having to build out that infrastructure in themselves. And so I would really kind of see these APIs as kind of that bridge that enables developers to kind of leverage generative AI with kind of the need for extensive AI, potentially expertise or infrastructure and resources. And so it's a really unique way to kind of connect into systems and leverage on what's already being built. And it kind of depends. And I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes when we look at open source versus closed source. But I think APIs play a really key part in how we're thinking about AI and investing in AI.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Talking about that, I wanted maybe to go back to the panel title. I think we've sort of level set on some basic terminology and methods. I wanted maybe us to focus a little bit on the actual topic here, which is AI needs VCs and VCs need AI. So suppose if the title is true statements, maybe I will pass it over to Massimo. And Massimo, can you give me maybe again 1-2 minutes sort of an overview of why is generative AI actually important for venture capital firms? Why do they need AI?
Well, it is important to stress that investing in generative AI can be attractive for venture capitalists due to several reasons. We just list a few ones. First of all, technological innovation. As we know, generative AI represents a cutting-edge technology that has the potential to revolutionize various industries. So investing in this sector allows venture capitalists to be at the forefront of technological advancement. Second point is the market potential. The market for generative AI is expected to grow exponentially in the coming years. By investing in this sector, venture capitalists can tap into a rapidly expanding market and position themselves for long-term growth and profitability. And then, of course, there's industry disruption, because generative AI has the capacity to disrupt traditional industries and create new markets opportunities. So venture capitalists can invest in AI startups that aim at disrupting sectors such as creative arts, content creation, marketing, healthcare, and even more. Investing early in these transformative companies can lead to substantial returns on investment. And there are also some concerns. For instance, venture capitalists are investing a lot of money in AI firms that are sometimes primarily driven by a concept rather than a business case. And despite significant funding rounds in the field of artificial intelligence, global venture funding remains stable in May 2023, and this is something we're going to discuss later. But there is another side that is quite interesting to mention. Generative AI can also be used by VC companies. For instance, Moonfire has been ranked as one of the top 10 data-driven VCs in the world, and the company has a high percentage of engineers in the team. And at Moonfire, AI is solving the basic manual work, while humans focus on doing meetings, building relationships, providing insights for the development of the venture fund. So generative AI can be an investment, but also a tool for venture capitalists.
Absolutely. Thank you, Massimo. And, talking about it, I think it touched a couple of points. I wanted to actually maybe switch gears a little bit to some specific areas. Let's just say I was listening to a panel before, and kind of, I guess, a common sense, people are not really investing necessarily in AI companies, they're investing in, well, when I had my own VC that I built with Microsoft and Qualcomm, we call it solving real solutions for real problems, right? So it's kind of basic, but we're trying to solve a problem, and AI may be a better way to do that. Generative AI certainly is a better way for many cases, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But maybe I wanted to pick on a more specific example. Maybe Jacqueline, I think you are very into med tech. That's one of the areas I spend most of my time, Microsoft Research in health solutions, and started my PhD in AI for medicine as well. So I'm very passionate about that, but also deep tech and some other fields of investment. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about, it's no secret, we had a little bit of slowdown in investments this year. How do you see in terms of kind of the overall portfolio of investments and the outlook for the next 12, 18 months, the prevalence of AI companies, any kind of trends, patterns you can share with us?
Yeah, so it has been very challenging in the last few months, as we all know, and medtech and deep tech company that generally do need more capital than other company have been struggling even more. In terms of AI, I have to say, in the last maybe, let's say, 2 years ago, you were seeing a lot of company, or maybe even 4 years ago, everyone was saying, oh, we do have AI applied in a way or the other to our product, because they wanted to use the word AI just to impress everyone, and especially investors. Nowadays, I think we have a totally different situation where, yes, they use the term AI, but actually they need to use AI to develop their tools. So even on those sectors, you actually need to use these type of instruments. So you have, for example, let's take on the health sector, you have a lot of data, right? And what you do with data, you need to manage those data. So of course, AI can be definitely a tremendous help to analyze the data, for example, for prevention or monitoring when you have certain type of technology. So this has been an increased use of these technologies. So you have seen on these type of teams the addition of these expertise that maybe was not necessarily there in the past, because it's something that you just need to use. And as we heard also from previous panels, it's something that you need to focus on what we can do as human, and all the rest you just need to lever on the machine, essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've probably an hour conversation long to have about AI medicine, but I wanted to maybe pick on a comment. I mean, it was sort of floating around. I did a presentation on generative AI for a group of investors in Los Angeles from Tiger 21 last week, and it was interesting how a lot of the questions were around. I have to say, I see a lot of challenges in AI, but maybe because I've been on it for too long, I see a lot more upsides than downsides. But for whatever reasons, people tend to focus a lot on the downsides as well, which are important. But I wanted to speak on an aspect which personally I've been very involved with responsible AI, or ethics in AI, whatever name you call it. Microsoft has called responsible AI. And I wanted to, again, to go back to this point here, which is I think society has a role in that, right? And we can talk about every different actor and persona there, but it's not all government, not all big tech. It's pretty much every single one of us has a responsibility, in my view. But since we're talking about VCs, maybe I'll ask Philip. I mean, we've seen some. I have to mention one particular example. That one actually struck me as something I haven't thought about it, although it's sort of obvious, which was the real deep fake. Like, I've seen this person, which I don't know who he is, speaking at United Nations or somewhere, and his voice keeps changing from Arnold Schwarzenegger to George Bush to this to that to women, and it's really perfect, right? So obviously I knew he was not none of them, but that could be probably an example of potential misuse of the technology. So, Philip, I wanted to ask more on the side of the VCs. I mean, I think, as I said, my personal opinion, I think everyone has some sort of responsibility there, but in particular for VCs, do VCs have a role in sort of trying to prevent, bad things happening due to bad people or bad actions? What do you see the role of VC being there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, our investment thesis was always in data and intelligence, and If you think about data and intelligence and now AI, which was an extension of that, for Star Wars fans in the room, kind of AI is like the Force, and if you have it, you can do good, become a Jedi, or you can do bad and be seduced by the dark side. And it's really your decision, right? With power comes responsibility. We know that, and I also have limited confidence in humans, I must say, as I believe power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so, as a VC, I think you have to have more layers there, and I think it came up earlier in the conference as well. So we definitely go pretty deep into ethics, like the value systems of founders, where they come from, how they grew up, like what they believe in, what they want to build, and also kind of a double click on that a little bit. For example, what are their ideas and energy around correcting data biases? Biases. We talked about that earlier in the conference as well. And if there's no energy about that, then it's probably a weaker case. And then I think the overall vision and mission to contribution versus just extraction is also an important point. But in terms of how to prevent bad people from doing bad things, I mean, even as a VC, you can only do so much. And I actually think Mark Anderson just wrote a pretty good article on that, which is like, hey, we just have to prosecute people who do bad things with AI. And so far, we haven't seen any case that wouldn't be covered by current law. And the other thing, like he points out as well, is what we do as well is invest in AI that prevents bad things before they happen, right? These happen in other technology areas as well. Like as we had a big rise on compute, like a lot of investments went into cybersecurity. And you know that really well where you come from. there's a bunch of cybersecurity companies. And so I think we have to do the same thing with AI. I mean, the cat is out of the bag. We can't put it back there. And I think overall it would be more beneficial than not. But we have to invest. We can't be naive, and we have to invest in things that prevent things from happening as well. But definitely, I think as a VC, you can't just think, okay, we invest in things that make a lot of money and are legal. I think you have to have additional filters because AI and data and intelligence brings you a lot of power.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, I fully agree. Actually, one of the books I read recently, it's called The Power of Ideas, and it plays with the word of some institutions are more about the idea of power, but we should be more about the power of ideas. It's Jonathan Sachs' book, also called Morality. But anyways, shifting gears a little bit, I know we have so much to talk about and so little time, so I wanted maybe to focus on maybe a few core points there. And again, going back to be very fair to the topic here, we talked about maybe why VCs need AI. I think I'll ask Daniel, why does AI need VCs? There's quite a long debate of who's going to win. Is it the startups, is it the big tech? And there's quite a lot of debate there, like in everywhere else. But at the end of the day, what's the difference in the end of the day that VCs will make? Capital is good, but what's going to be the main difference between the generative AI startups that will be backed by VCs, those who will either choose not to or not have an option in a few years? What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question to kind of bring it back to. And AI is really interesting because it permeates a bunch of different industries. So we talked about AI in healthcare, it could be in agriculture, you kind of name it. But AI, like any development, often requires a lot of financial resources to fund research. So if you're funding research, if you're acquiring talent, if you're developing the infrastructure, Caroline, for instance, at the beginning of the conference was talking about, how we look at the tech stack. So if we think about the actual hardware of NVIDIA, and then we think about the cloud platforms like AWS, GCP, and Azure, right? Like there is these different tech stacks that are involved, and each one of these tech stacks in the use cases of AI costs a lot of money. And if kind of looking at even OpenAI, I think they spent upwards of about 540 million. So that's a lot of money that you need in order to kind of fund the development. And so when we're looking at the development of these new technologies, I think VC is definitely essential and actually funding that and seeing where it can go. But then if you think of the flip side of, why do VCs need AI? I know Massimo made some amazing points as well. But when you also think about sometimes the goal of a VC is, you're really kind of a professional money manager, and you're looking to have returns and generate returns for your LPs as well. And so I think there's an interesting balance between the two.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we probably have time for maybe one more question for each of you. I would love to stay here longer if you want, but I think we have other people coming. I'm going to actually ask Massimo one question, which is, I think, probably a deep discussion right now, which is regarding open source versus proprietary AI models. Which ones would the VCs are going to bet on, and how do you think about it?
Well, this is a very crucial question these days, I would say. And there are two different ideas, and I will discuss both of them. For AI startups, first of all, building language models based on proprietary source of information could be the key to winning venture firms' interest and funds. Why is that? Because VCs are interested in those models because the AI companies own unique data and have the advantage to own the process that is the base of the proprietary information. Now, big tech companies often have access to vast proprietary data sets that are not publicly available. And these data sets can be important for training models and may contain specific data. Proprietary data sets can provide a competitive advantage to companies that possess them, that help them build models that outperform models trained on open source data alone. Their advantage in terms of performance and accuracy is due to, first of all, their access to large-scale proprietary datasets and extensive compute resources and sophisticated training techniques. But then on the other side, there was this leaked Google memo affirming that the company lost its competitive advantage in the field of generative AI because of open source models. Open source machine learning algorithms have overcome the capabilities of proprietary algorithms. When using open source algorithms to train models on open source datasets, the performance of foundational models apparently looks even better than proprietary models. So there are discussions also because of fine-tuning for open source models that involves taking a pre-trained model, typically trained on a large dataset, and then further training on a smaller domain-specific dataset. This process adapts the model to a specific task or domain. And while fine-tuning can be effective, it might still require a big proprietary datasets at the moment. So there's no a clear-cut answer. To me, open source models might be more effective than proprietary models in the future. But right now, proprietary are winning.
Very well, thank you. And I wanted to go maybe to maybe a last question for this particular panel, but to me, probably all of these questions are important, but one of the more critical ones. I mean, we've been talking to, I came back from Berlin last week. We were there with people from UNICEF and lots of amazing people just think about the future of Ukraine and Ukrainian startups and lots of VCs from Europe. And obviously, there's quite a lot going on in the world. And one of the things that maybe I'll ask, maybe Jacqueline, if you have any thoughts on that. I know you were also part of the European and Global Women in VC. So I personally, I tend to have a slightly different view on certain topics. I think people tell me, once you worried that AI is biased, and I said, no, I actually worried that human beings are biased, because same in a bad analogy, the same way that I'll try and educate my kids so they become less prejudiced people and more open-minded people. Then, well, if you're going to build some machine learning, you probably should do the same. But problem is you're biased, so your AI will be biased, right? And it's not just the technology matter. So I wonder if you have any takes on that. I mean, it's kind of promising things or dangerous things in terms of, for example, gender equality. We know there's quite a lot of problem there in the high-tech space, in the VC space as well. The statistics are slightly better, but far away from good. Any takes that you have in terms of how AI or generative AI may somehow impact on that space? Positive or negative, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm always a positive person, so I believe every every type of innovation is positive. It depends how you take it. And we all have unconscious bias. And unfortunately, the gender diversity, it is one of these. And that's also why you see a lot of potential use of technology to really help making decision without, having this bias that we all have, right, for whatever reason. So I don't know if it can help. I think it can help using AI in this respect and making more objective decision. Does this will help close the gender gap? I don't know. I hope so. I think it's a process that we all need to take of. And if you look at the past innovation and technology you had, for example, look at investments, right? In the past, you were doing everything on paper, on the phone, and so on. And then, everything became electronically, and you thought, okay, we're going to lose job. We're going to, how it's going to happen. And then we just developed and adapted, and we actually were able to do better and more interesting things. So it's exactly the same probably now with AI. It all depends how you face it, and and I hope it can help on closing all the different gaps, including the gender one.
Excellent. I know that we are at the top of the hour, so I do first of all want to thank each and every one of you. It's been a really amazing time. I wish we will have other sessions like that. I do want to, in closing, tell you that I'm always looking at the half positive, half full glass. I do think that from that example, I work with generative AI since 2019 when it wasn't such a buzz, and we are building AI systems using generative AI, which means that using genetic algorithms, you can use Darwin theory. You can actually create millions and billions of algorithms and billions of ways to organize data, and without human interference, and let science actually choose the survival of the fittest. So I think it's something that in 2019, when I heard that concept, I thought was science fiction. We actually using that in many different use cases in health, particularly, but in other industries. And again, I think there's quite a lot of work to be done, but I'm very encouraged by the skills and the passion of everyone here. And I want to wish you all best of luck. Stay in touch, and I do think we're on to something amazing here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you also from our side. It was again an amazing panel. Thank you, Benny, for moderating it, and I hope to meet you in Israel when I'm there next time. I loved it very much. There is a lot that we could recap. Stay in touch with our panelists, dear audience. Thanks, Jacqueline, Danielle, Philip, and Benny. Thank you for your time and your dedicated insights that you shared with all of us. AI needs VCs, and why VCs needs AI. With that, we're actually most welcome. Thanks for being with us. And now, dear audience, we are already at the last session of our conference today. I can't believe it's always surprising me how fast 3 hours can go by, yet how much insights 20 experts can put under our magnifying glass in such a short amount of time. And my tongue gets tired, so this is always also a sign. I hope that you all find the content insights and it inspired you to connect with our AI peers and the speakers. Now, I'm delighted to have our next speaker, Ken Forster, on our virtual stage talking about venture industrialists harnessing the power of AI for a sustainable industrial future. It is very clear by now, AI is pivotal in driving sustainable development. It optimizes production process, reduces waste, and improves energy efficiency, contributing to a greener environment. It enhances predictive maintenance, reducing downtime and extending equipment life. It aids decision-making through data analyzing, fostering innovation and competitiveness. In the energy sector, AI is optimizing production, distribution, and consumption. It improves renewable energy forecasting, enhancing grid management, and supports energy saving through smart home solution. I could continue, but there is no better person right now to talk about all that than Ken. Ken, a warm welcome on our stage. Let me briefly introduce you to our global audience. You are a trailblazing figure in the digital landscape with over 30 years of experience across industry, recognized as one of the Switzerland's 100 digital shapers in 2022. You have made exceptional contribution to digital manufacturing and played a pivotal role in shaping Switzerland's digital future. Trained as an engineer and a skilled strategist and marketer, your early achievement involved pioneering open architecture control system and revolutionizing the factory of the future concept at Lockheed. You continue to leave your mark at Wonderware and Objective Automation, where you were a co-founder. In 2012, your entrepreneurial spirit led you to establish Momenta, an unmatched venture capital firm specializing in the digital industry. Your expertise and visionary approach make you more than just a digital industry veteran. You are a catalyst for change, a visionary leader, and a dedicated advocate of innovation. Saying that, Ken, the stage is yours, and we will meet in around 10 minutes for a good Q&A.
And you did such a good job leading. I was kind of hoping you'd finish out the whole presentation in terms of the impact. So as said, I'm Ken Forster, Exec Director of Momenta, and we are the leading venture capital firm focused on creating industrial impact. And so I'm pleased to be your final speaker for the day and what has already been a very impressive event. Now, I think I have some slides that are supposed to pop up, so there they are. And we've had some clicker issues, so I'm going to have to verbally click this one. Maybe I get ChatGPT to help me with that, or as we like to call it, Chat IoT. So anyways, next slide, please. So let me start by saying I am not going to talk about generative AI today, as I believe our prior speakers have done a great job. What I will focus on, however, is outcomes. How our industrial clients are using even simple data-driven decision-making backed by robust data foundations to create significant global impact. You guys will appreciate this graphic because it was floating all over LinkedIn yesterday. So, all right, so next slide, please. The topic comes over 30 years as a practitioner, as mentioned, in industrial automation, the last 10 of which has been at the helm of Momenta. So we're a Swiss-based venture capital firm. We focus exclusively on the digitization of energy, manufacturing, smart spaces, so think cities, buildings, farms, and then supply chain and transportation. So in the last decade, we've invested in over 50 disruptors. We've had 8 exits. We've led 150 strategic engagements with the largest industrial companies and placed over 250 leaders throughout our digital industry ecosystem, especially chief digital officers. Next slide, please. So we're early growth stage investors, primarily in Europe and North America. We invest thematically from sector-specific thesis frameworks. We are deep practitioners, people who have had industry experience and who have spent most of their life in either direct industry operator roles or as corporate venture capital. Now, as an example of the themes that we drive, here is our 4th digital industry fund called it's a $100 million fund. It's based on the Emerging Industry 5 framework from the EU, and it has 3 themes: human centricity, resilience, and sustainability. As part of our thesis, we've taken this and derived 9 impact outcome areas and 18 investment areas. Now, mind you, we do this for every single fund that we have. Next slide, please. So we're, of course, highly aligned with industrial leaders and what is important to them. In a recently published Smart Manufacturing report by Rockwell Automation, a survey of the top 1,300 industrials globally, you'll see that the top technology for driving improvements over the next 5 years is data analytics, aka data-driven decision-making, as we said earlier, followed lower in the list by increased use of more advanced artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities. Now, manufacturers are focused on outcomes, and technologies like AI are useful to the extent that they can improve those outcomes. Traditionally, these outcomes were focused on productivity, call it Industry 4. But today, there is a triple bottom line that's being created that is about also improving the working conditions of their people and decreasing the impact on the planet. This is what we mean by industrial impact. Now, what I want to do is, over my presentation, is to walk you through 3 of our portfolio companies that are creating industrial impact, using AI to improve operations relative to productivity, people, and planet. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So our first portfolio company, and it's actually our most recent investment, is Tavaret, a Berlin-based software firm driving the world towards sustainable and zero waste manufacturing, especially in metal. Next slide. Metal casting is actually one of the oldest forms of metal manufacturing, simply pouring molten metal into molds from which emerge automobile wheels, aircraft components, and many of your consumer goods. Now, the best practice in metal manufacturing is to use what they call CIP, or continuous improvement process techniques, that gradually improve the quality of produced goods. The challenge is in the metal casting process alone, there are over 2.4 trillion possible combinations of process changes that can be made. And many of these tend to vary with the quality of the input materials and even factors such as outside humidity. The most impactful parameters lead to as much as 9% scrap and 18% of energy waste. More concerning is a lot of this institutional and process expertise sits in the heads of longtime workers, many of which are retiring from the workforce. Next slide, please. So what Tavaret does, Tavaret's AI-based solution models that models out the best recipes for every batch of product being developed based on historical and best practice outcomes. They then monitor the key process parameters to drive to near zero waste manufacturing goals. In a typical pilot, we've achieved 18% energy savings and 50% scrap reductions, while reducing the emissions by 77%. So resulting in a total of over 900 tons of CO2 annually and over 1 million in savings annually for a given plant. Just one plant. Productivity, people, and planet. Okay, next slide, please. So company number 2, our second portfolio company, is Pulse Industrial. It's an Ontario, Canada firm providing real-time monitoring of industrial steam systems. Did you know that 45% of the world's energy consumption goes to industrial heating? The largest point of heat loss in any industrial steam systems is in steam traps. So think about how many Hollywood movies you've seen where the steam is rising up around the industrial setting. It ends up that this escaping steam has more than cinematic value, with large sites seeing nearly $1 million in annual energy loss. Next slide. Pulse solves this with a simple, inexpensive monitoring solution backed by an AI engine that can not only detect, but even predict steam trap failures, whether they're minor or major. And by the way, the minor ones can result in a lot more energy loss. So Pulse regularly produces a system report card on the overall steam operations while signaling the quality of each steam trap with suggested maintenance overall. Next slide. So while we are still at the seed stage in Pulse, our impact is already significant. In 2022 alone, Pulse saved over 1.5 billion pounds of steam, 72,000 tons of carbon emissions, and $2.1 million in energy savings. And this is for a seed stage company. Next slide. So our final company is SmartX. It's far from the least. In fact, it probably hits close to home, or at least body, for all of us. SmartX is a young company in Portugal providing real-time inspection systems for circular knitting machines. Next slide, please. So what's the problem? Well, the textile for most modern clothing is produced on such circular knitting machines. Nearly 10% of textiles produced are discarded due to defects that are not caught until later production stages. That creates over $100 billion in waste annually. Next slide. So SmartX's solution augments human inspectors with a system of smart cameras backed by what they call an AI booster that detects defects in real time on the production machine and immediately stops the production of defective products. Very simple solution, but a very unique one in terms of the industry. Next slide. So in 2022 alone, SmartX saved 42 million liters of water, 3.4 million kilowatt hours of electricity, 845 tons of CO2, and 375,000 kilograms of fabric. That is enough for 1.5 million t-shirts. And we still have a significant part of the market ahead of us. Last slide. So the bottom line is that while traditional industries are often slow to adopt emerging technologies like generative AI, they can do immense things with even the basic AI capabilities that exist now, data-driven decision-making backed by robust data foundations. It creates huge returns, not only for these companies and their clients and us as consumers, but also across productivity, people, and our planet. So next slide. If you'd like to meet some of our industrial impact ecosystem, including the chief digital officers of ABB, Bosch, Dover, and GE, please listen to our Momenta Digital Thread podcast, where we interview these key leaders every week. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for sharing. That was really short and crisp with a lot of insights. Again, dear audience, reach out, as Ken mentioned, and get some more information. But we have time at least for one question. And I'm really wondering, by listening to all the other speakers, especially for you, why do you think Switzerland is such a great place from which to base a VC firm?
Haha, great question. And one, because I live here, I guess. No. So one, look, it's central to Europe, but it's really close to our key investment regions. We do work with Taiwan and North America and South America, and Switzerland seems to be central to all of them. Number two, it's an educated and qualified workforce. Anybody who knows the apprentice programs and actually even immigration policy of Switzerland knows that there is plenty to replenish that base constantly. So it's a great place to live in that regard. But it's a high quality of life, and who could argue about tax efficiency? So I'll leave that aside. But all the way around, it's a really great place from which to raise and manage a venture fund like we've done over the last 10 years.
You're just saying to raise. If you raise money, how would you say, what is the fraction of Swiss investors?
Yeah, it's a good question. We tend to focus on strategic investors because we're usually trying to align with large industrials. And so we'll anchor with the strategic and then fill with institutional. Of that, I think our Fund 2 was backed by a Swiss-based industrial, Fund 3 a Taiwanese, and Fund 4 a US-based one. So that gives us 1 out of 3, I guess.
Okay. And another one, you were talking about opportunities. If we're talking about opportunities, let's talk also about the impact of these opportunities. How do you measure your industrial impact?
Yeah, so we have just, I think, completed our application to SFDR, or the EU's Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulations. We are what's qualified as an Article 8 investor, which means we're so-called light green. That means we're not a pure impact investor, but one that drives impact from our productivity investments that we do. That's productivity, people, planet. As part of that, we trace our investment or impact to 21 of the EU taxonomy items for climate mitigation and climate adoption. For those of you who aren't familiar with SFDR, it is probably one of the best regulations. You would never hear me say this regarding any other regulation in terms of preventing greenwashing. I think it's a quite strong regulatory set, and actually surprisingly approachable and driving compliance with it. So we're very happy.
Great, great. Ken, we're reaching to the end of our conference today. I'd like to thank you very much for your valuable input. We'll keep the chat open. And again, dear audience, I'm repeating myself, reach out to our speaker, reach out to Ken, exchange on social media, on LinkedIn directly. And also in the download section of the platform, you can also find Ken's presentation from today. So for now, Ken, I hope to meet you in person soon. Bye. Have a great, great summer, and talk to you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Wow, another 3 hours. And now I have a special thing to say. I mean, you probably would think that we are wrapping up the session with ChatGPT, how it would be evident. But we have something much, much better. And I'm very happy now to share with you the wrap up that actually has been written by one of our global ambassadors, Kilian, who literally sits now in the Amazonas somewhere in Argentina. And he was dialing in from there and listening to all of you. Here, some regards from Argentina, from Kilian. Thanks a lot, Kilian, for being with us and sharing with us the wrap up that I would love to share with you now here. So we heard about how investments is driving inclusive technology that can increase accessibility for children. We learned about how AI can be used for personalized learning experience and how this helps develop cognitive skills in children. We heard how AI can be used to scale potential investment in companies and how disruptive innovation from incumbents help to create better products. We have heard about open source APIs that can be integrated at scale, and we have learned how APIs can connect systems and leverage AI innovation. We heard about the market potential of generative AI as it has a long-term profitability. Also, we heard about transformative AI startups in deep tech, medtech, and much more, and how AI is also used by VCs for the development of venture funds. And then we had one question from Thomas in the chat that actually I would like to express as a consequence and not as a question. AI evolution will push up humanity's skills, and as a result, people will be more skilled and ready to work with AI. For me, and I'm mentioning this quite often, the human being is born to solve problems that we invented by ourselves. So, dear AI enthusiasts, on behalf of my co-founder Andy and the whole team, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all of you who have joined us today and actually who have joined us through the whole SwissCognitive journey during the year on social media, on events, on workshops, on strategies. This is how we work. Share for success. It's great having you all always with us. Reach out to us if you have something to share with the community. We will try to make it happen to bring you or share your news in our newsletter or social media channel. By that, I wish you all a super cool, enjoyable, lovely, and relaxing summer. Stay healthy, and don't forget us returning after summer vacation. Big hug and bye.